The glass shattered like 1,000 promises breaking at once as CEO Clara Winters watched her empire burn 40 floors of steel and ambition consumed by flames that shouldn't exist. "You're coming with me," growled the maintenance man who'd just kicked down her office door, his Navy SEAL training evident in every calculated movement. She had 10 seconds to decide die with her company, or trust a stranger whose calloused hands might be the only thing between her and the conspiracy that had already killed 3 people tonight. Welcome to my story. Comment below where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this tale has traveled. The rain hammered Seattle like it was trying to wash away sins that ran too deep for any storm to cleanse. Ethan Reed stood in the basement of the Winters Tower, his maintenance uniform soaked with sweat despite the October chill seeping through the concrete walls. He'd been checking the building's fire suppression system for the 3rd time that week. Something about the readings had been nagging at him, the kind of itch between his shoulder blades that had saved his life more times than he could count during his tours in Afghanistan. "Pressure's dropping again in sectors 7 through 12, he muttered into his radio, though he knew nobody was listening. The night security guard Tommy was probably asleep at his desk, and the cleaning crew wouldn't start their rounds for another hour. It was just him and 42 floors of glass and steel that housed one of Seattle's most powerful tech companies. Ethan ran his flashlight along the pipes, noting the fresh tool marks on the coupling joints. Someone had been here. Recently. His fingers found the tampered valve and his blood went cold. This wasn't negligence or wear, this was sabotage. 40 floors above Clara Winters stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the city lights blur through the rain. At 34, she'd built Phoenix Technologies from a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire, but tonight everything was unraveling. The hostile takeover attempt from Victor Lang's consortium, the board members who'd suddenly turned against her, the leaked documents suggesting financial irregularities that she knew were fabricated but couldn't prove. "Working late again, Clara?" She didn't turn at the voice. Marcus Chen, her CFO and oldest friend, had a key to her office. "Someone has to pet," she said, her reflection in the window showing the exhaustion she'd been hiding for weeks. "The board meeting is tomorrow. If I can't convince them that Victor's offer is a trap—" "Maybe it's not a trap," Marcus said quietly. "Maybe it's a lifeline." Now she did turn, studying the man who'd been with her since the beginning. His usually confident demeanor seemed frayed at the edges, his designer suit wrinkled in ways Marcus never allowed. "You can't be serious. Victor Lang destroyed 3 companies before setting his sights on us. He doesn't build, he strips assets and sells the bones. And maybe that's better than watching it all burn," Marcus replied, something strange in his voice. "Clara, there are things happening that you don't understand, forces at play that—" The lights flickered. Both of them froze, looking up at the crystal chandelier that had been a gift from her father before he died. It swayed slightly, though there was no earthquake, no reason for it to move. "Marcus," Clara said slowly, "what did you do?" Before he could answer, the fire alarm shrieked to life. Ethan heard the alarm from the basement and immediately knew this wasn't a drill. The tampered valves, the disabled suppressors, someone had turned the Winters Tower into a 42-story death trap. He grabbed his radio, already running for the stairwell. "Tommy. Tommy, wake up. We have a real situation here. Fire systems have been compromised. Call 911 now." Static was his only answer. Ethan burst into the stairwell, taking the steps 3 at a time. His maintenance keycard would get him anywhere in the building, but he had to make a choice. The fire would start in the server rooms on floor 15. That's where the most flammable materials were stored, where a small fire could quickly become an inferno. But the executive offices were on 42, and at this hour the CEO would still be there. He'd seen her car in the garage, the same silver Tesla that had been there every night for the past month. Training kicked in. Assess, prioritize, act. The servers could be replaced. A life couldn't. He changed direction, heading up instead of toward the fire's origin. Clara backed away from Marcus, her hand reaching for her phone. The smell of smoke was already seeping through the ventilation system, and she could hear something else, a crackling sound that shouldn't exist in a modern building with state-of-the-art fire suppression. "You sabotaged the fire systems," she said, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "The financial documents, the board manipulation, it was all you." Marcus's face crumpled, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I didn't want this. God, Clara, I never wanted this. But Victor has my daughter. Sarah, she was supposed to be at Cornell, but she went missing 3 weeks ago. He sent me videos, Clara. What they'd do to her if I didn't. We could have gone to the police. With what proof Victor owns half the police commission. His reach, you have no idea how deep it goes. The mayor, the judges, even some of the FBI. I had to choose between my daughter and... He gestured helplessly at the office around them, smoke beginning to curl under the door. I'm so sorry. The windows suddenly spider-webbed with cracks from the heat below. Time was running out. We need to get out of here, Clara said, grabbing Marcus's arm despite everything. We'll figure out Sarah later, but we have to... The door exploded inward, kicked off its hinges by someone who clearly knew what they were doing. A man in a maintenance uniform stood there, his face streaked with soot eyes, scanning the room with military precision. You're coming with me, Ethan said. Not a request, but a command. Both of you. The stairwells on the east side are already compromised. We have maybe 3 minutes before this floor becomes an oven. Who are you? Clara demanded. Ethan Reed, building maintenance. Former Navy SEAL, if that matters to your decision-making process. I can get you out, but we need to move now. Marcus shook his head, backing toward the shattered windows. I can't. If I survive this, Victor will kill Sarah. The only way she lives is if I... Don't you dare, Clara said, but Marcus was already climbing onto the window ledge, 42 floors of nothing beneath him. Ethan moved faster than Clara thought possible, crossing the room in 2 strides, but Marcus let go before he could reach him. The CFO fell backward into the Seattle night, his scream swallowed by the storm and the shrieking alarms. No! Clara lunged toward the window, but Ethan caught her around the waist, pulling her back as another explosion rocked the building. He made his choice, Ethan said firmly. You need to make yours, live or die. Decide now. Clara looked at this stranger, this maintenance man who'd appeared like something out of an action movie and made the only choice she could. Get me out of here. Ethan nodded, pulling off his uniform shirt to reveal a black t-shirt underneath. He wrapped the uniform around his hands. Stay close, don't let go of me for any reason, and whatever you see, keep moving. They plunged into the smoke-filled corridor, Ethan leading with the confidence of someone who'd navigated worse situations. The emergency lighting had failed, leaving only the orange glow of fire reflecting off the smoke. Clara's eyes burned her lungs, already protesting, but Ethan's hand in hers was steady, pulling her forward when her body wanted to stop. Why? She gasped between coughs. Why save me? Because that's what I do, Ethan replied, using his wrapped hands to test a door handle before rejecting it too hot. Also because my daughter has severe asthma, and your company is 3 weeks away from releasing a revolutionary treatment that could save her life. So yeah, I have a vested interest in keeping you alive. They reached another stairwell, but Ethan stopped, pressing his ear to the door. Fire's below us. We go up. Up? That's insane. Trust me. He looked back at her, and in the hellish glow, she could see scars on his neck, old burns that told their own story. I've done this before. They climbed through thickening smoke, passing the mechanical floor, the helicopter pad access locked, of course, until they reached the roof. Ethan kicked open the door, and they stumbled out into the storm. Rain hit Clara's face like cold salvation, but they were still 44 floors up, with a building burning beneath them. Now what? Clara shouted over the wind. Ethan was already moving, pulling her toward the edge, where a window washing platform hung on its rails. We ride this down to the fire floor, then take the external fire escape the rest of the way. That's your plan. That thing isn't meant for... Another explosion, this one close enough to knock them both to their knees. When Clara looked back, she saw flames erupting from the stairwell they'd just exited. It's the only plan, Ethan said, helping her onto the platform. It swayed sickeningly in the wind, but he was already working the manual controls, beginning their descent. They made it 15 floors before the cables started to fail, weakened by the heat. Ethan saw it coming, grabbed Clara, and jumped for the fire escape just as the platform tore away from the building, falling into the chaos below. They hit the metal grating hard, Clara crying out as her shoulders struck the railing. But Ethan was pulling her up again, always moving, always forward. Down they went, floor by floor, the fire escape growing hotter as they descended past the burning floors. Clara's designer heels had long since been abandoned, her feet bleeding on the metal grating, but she kept going, driven by the stranger's unwavering determination to keep her alive. Finally, impossibly, they reached the ground. Fire trucks were everywhere, their lights painting the street in reds and blues. Paramedics rushed forward, but the media was there too, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Clara's empire was literally burning behind her, and the vultures were already circling. "Ms. Winters, is it true Phoenix Technologies was engaged in fraud?" "Clara? Did Marcus Chen jump, or was he pushed? What's your response to Victor Lang's statement that this is divine justice?" Ethan stepped between her and the cameras, his presence somehow more intimidating than his size should allow. "Back off. She needs medical attention." "And who are you?" a reporter demanded. "Her bodyguard." "I'm nobody," Ethan said, but he kept his body between Clara and the mob as he guided her toward an ambulance. It wasn't until they were in the relative quiet of the emergency vehicle, an EMT checking Clara's vitals, that she really looked at the man who'd saved her life. Ethan Reed was perhaps 35, with the kind of build that came from functional fitness rather than gym vanity. His hands, now being treated for burns she hadn't even noticed him sustain, were scarred from more than just tonight. His eyes were gray, the color of Seattle's winter sky, and held a weariness that spoke of someone who'd seen too much but kept going anyway. "Your daughter," Clara said suddenly. "You said she has asthma." Ethan nodded, wincing as the EMT applied burn cream to his palms. "Sophie, she's 7. The Phoenix treatment we applied for the trial, but we didn't qualify. No insurance that would cover experimental treatment." Clara pulled out her phone, miraculously intact in her jacket pocket. Despite everything, her building burning, her CFO dead, her company under attack, she pulled up a contact and hit dial. "David, it's Clara. Yes, I'm alive. Listen, I need you to add a name to the Phoenix trial immediately. Sophie Reed." She looked at Ethan. "What's her full name?" "Sophia Marie Reed." He said, something breaking in his voice. "But you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." She continued, speaking into the phone. "Full coverage, all expenses. Make it happen." She hung up and met his eyes. "You saved my life. This is the least I can do." The ambulance doors suddenly opened and 2 men in suits climbed in, not EMTs, not police. Clara recognized one of them as Detective Raymond Cross, Victor Lang's personal friend. "Ms. Winters," Cross said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "you're under arrest for the murder of Marcus Chen." "That's ridiculous," Clara protested. "Marcus jumped. He was being blackmailed by Victor Lang." "We have witnesses who say they saw you push him," Cross said, producing handcuffs. "And Mr. Reed here, our hero maintenance man, is under arrest for arson and destruction of property. Funny how the fire started right after you were seen tampering with the suppression systems, isn't it, Mr. Reed?" Ethan didn't resist as they cuffed him, but his eyes never left Clara's. "They planned all of this. Every detail." "Save it for the lawyers," Cross said. "Assuming you can afford one on a maintenance man's salary." As they were led away in separate police cars, Clara watched her building collapse in on itself through the rear window, 42 floors of dreams and ambition reduced to rubble and ash. But worse than that was the knowledge that Victor Lang had won. He'd destroyed her company, framed her for murder, and even turned her rescue into another trap. But he'd made one mistake. He'd involved Ethan Reed, and Clara had a feeling that was going to be a fatal error. The police station reeked of burnt coffee and desperation. Clara sat in an interrogation room that had seen too many broken dreams. Her designer suit ruined her feet wrapped in gauze from the EMT's hasty treatment. Through the one-way mirror, she could feel eyes watching, calculating how long it would take to break her. Detective Cross sat across from her, a folder thick with what she assumed were fabricated documents spread between them like accusations. "Marcus Chen sent an email to his wife an hour before his death," Cross said, sliding a printout toward her. "It says, and I quote, 'Clara has lost her mind. She's threatening to kill me if I don't stop the merger. I'm scared for my life.'" "That's not possible," Clara said flatly. "Marcus wasn't married. His wife died 3 years ago from cancer. I spoke at her funeral." Cross's smile widened. "Are you sure about that?" "Because I have a marriage certificate here from 6 months ago. Marcus Chen and Jennifer Walsh married in Vegas." Clara's blood chilled. Jennifer Walsh was Victor Lang's personal attorney. "I want my lawyer," Clara said. "Of course, but it's 3 in the morning, and with the building collapse, half the city's infrastructure is compromised. Might take a while for anyone to get here." Cross leaned back, too comfortable, too confident. "Why don't you just tell me the truth?" "You found out Marcus was selling company secrets to Victor Lang. You confronted him. Things got heated. You pushed him. It could be argued as temporary insanity crime of passion. You might only get 20 years instead of life." In another interrogation room 3 doors down, Ethan was having his own conversation with law enforcement, though his was taking a different tone. The detective questioning him, a younger man named Harrison, seemed nervous. He kept checking his phone, glancing at the door. "Look, Mr. Reed," Harrison said, "we know you're just collateral damage here. Maintenance man trying to do his job got caught up in something bigger. Tell us that Ms. Winters paid you to sabotage the building. Maybe she promised you money for your daughter's treatment, and you can walk away from this." Ethan hadn't said a word since they'd read him his rights. He sat perfectly still, a skill learned in countless hours of surveillance, waiting for the enemy to reveal themselves. Harrison was sweating despite the room's chill. His phone buzzed again. "I need to step out," Harrison said abruptly. "Think about my offer." The moment the door closed, Ethan was in motion. The handcuffs cheap department store model took him less than 30 seconds to pick with a paperclip he'd palmed from the EMT's clipboard. The room had no cameras, a violation of protocol that told him everything he needed to know about how official this arrest really was. He pressed his ear to the door, listening. Harrison was arguing with someone in the hall, voice pitched with fear. "I don't care what Mr. Lang wants. I'm not killing anyone. No, I signed up to plant evidence, not... Don't threaten my family." Ethan made a decision. He opened the door silently, catching Harrison mid-conversation. The detective's eyes widened in shock, then relief. "Please," Harrison whispered, ending his call. "Get out of here. They're going to kill you both. Make it look like a murder-suicide. I can't stop it, but I can give you a 5-minute head start." "Where's Clara?" "Room 3. But there are 2 guards." Ethan was already moving. The guards were positioned at either end of the hallway, trying to look official, but their tactical stance screamed private military. Ethan took the first one down with a chokehold, lowering him silently to the floor. The second turned at the soft thump hand, going for his weapon, but Ethan's thrown paperweight, a heavy glass award from someone's desk, struck him in the temple before he could draw. Clara looked up in shock when her door opened to reveal Ethan free and holding a guard's keycard. "We're leaving," he said simply. "How did you—" "Questions later. They're planning to kill us both in approximately 3 minutes. Move." Cross had stepped out to take a call, leaving Clara unguarded, another sign of overconfidence. They made it to the parking garage before the alarms started. Ethan hot-wiring an unmarked sedan with practiced efficiency. "Where are we going?" Clara asked as they peeled out into the Seattle streets, rain still falling like the city itself was mourning. "First we get Sophie," Ethan said, taking corners at speeds that should have terrified her but somehow didn't. "Then we disappear until we can figure out how to fight back." "Sophie. But won't they expect—" "They think I'm a simple maintenance man with a sick kid. They don't know about my past, my training, or the fact that I've been preparing for something like this since the day my daughter was born." He glanced at her and she saw something dangerous in those gray eyes. "I knew eventually someone would come for us. Different war, same enemies, people with power who think everyone else is expendable." They arrived at a modest apartment complex in Beacon Hill. Ethan took the stairs 3 at a time, Clara struggling to keep up. The door to apartment 3B was already open, and Ethan's entire demeanor changed. "Sophie?" he called out, drawing a concealed weapon Clara hadn't even known he was carrying. "Mrs. Chen." They found the elderly babysitter unconscious, but breathing on the couch, a nasty bump on her head. Sophie's room was empty, her inhaler left behind on the nightstand, a sight that made Ethan go completely still. "They took her," he said, voice deadly quiet. "Victor Lang took my daughter." Clara's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. "Hello, Clara." Victor Lang's voice was smooth as aged whiskey, poisonous as hemlock. "I believe we have some things to discuss." "Where is she?" Ethan demanded. Ah, the heroic maintenance man. Your daughter is safe, Mr. Reed. For now. She's asking for her inhaler, though. Such a shame about her condition. The air quality in some of Seattle's abandoned warehouses can be quite poor. I'll kill you, Ethan said simply, not a threat, but a promise. I'm sure you'd try, but here's what's going to happen instead. Clara, you're going to publicly confess to murdering Marcus Chen and burning down your building for the insurance money. You'll sign over all Phoenix Technologies' assets to my consortium. Then you'll take your own life in remorse. Very tragic, but neat. And if I refuse, then Mr. Reed's daughter stops breathing. And before you think about going to the real police, remember that I own enough of them to make sure your story never gets heard. You have 6 hours to decide. I'll send you the confession script. The line went dead. Clara watched Ethan process this, saw him push down the father's panic, and let the soldier take over. He made a mistake, Ethan said finally. What mistake? He has all the cards. He gave us 6 hours. That's 5 hours and 59 minutes more than I need. He pulled out a burner phone she hadn't seen him acquire, dialing from memory. Eagle 1, this is Eagle 6. Authentication, Tango Romeo 77 Alpha. Yes, sir. I'm calling in that favor. Full team Seattle, my coordinates. Roger that. He hung up and looked at Clara. Victor Lang thinks he's the apex predator in this city. He's about to learn what happens when you threaten a SEAL's pup. Who did you just call? My old unit. Officially, they're all retired, living quiet civilian lives. Unofficially, we've stayed ready for the day. One of us needed the others. He moved to a hidden panel in the wall Clara hadn't noticed, pulling out weapons, body armor, and equipment that definitely didn't belong in a maintenance man's apartment. Lang has money, political connections, and hired thugs. I have brothers who've bled together in places where Lang's money means nothing. Within an hour, the apartment had become a tactical command center. 4 men had arrived, moving with the same lethal grace as Ethan. They didn't use names, just call signs Wraith, Thunder, Phoenix, and Reaper. Clara found the irony of Phoenix's name didn't escape her. Targets holed up in his penthouse. Wraith reported, pulling up satellite imagery on a military-grade laptop. But the girl's not there. Heat signatures suggest she's being held at this warehouse in Georgetown. He pointed to a building on the outskirts of the industrial district. 6 guards, standard private military configuration. Too easy, Thunder muttered. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, Ethan agreed. But they're expecting me to come alone, desperate, sloppy with fear. They're not expecting us. Reaper looked at Clara. What's your play here, ma'am? This is going to get ugly. Clara thought about Marcus dead because of Victor's machinations, about her company destroyed, about a 7-year-old girl struggling to breathe somewhere in a warehouse. Victor Lang destroyed everything I built because he could, because he thought I was weak. I want him to know he was wrong. Phoenix grinned. I like her. They split into 2 teams. Ethan, Thunder, and Reaper would retrieve Sophie. Clara would go with Wraith and Phoenix to Victor's penthouse, not to confront him, but to gather evidence. His arrogance is his weakness, Clara explained. He'll have kept trophies records of his crimes. He always does. We get those, we own him. The warehouse extraction happened with military precision. Thunder took out the external cameras with an EMP device, while Reaper neutralized the perimeter guards with tranquilizer darts. Ethan had been adamant about no killing unless absolutely necessary. They found Sophie in a shipping container, terrified but unharmed, her breathing labored but manageable. Daddy! She threw herself into Ethan's arms, and for a moment the soldier disappeared, leaving only a father holding his child. I've got you, baby. You're safe now. Meanwhile, Clara's team had infiltrated Victor's building through a construction access point 3 floors below the penthouse. Wraith's electronic warfare suite had blinded the security systems, while Phoenix's lockpicking skills that rivaled Ethan's got them through every door. Victor's office was exactly what Clara had expected. Ostentatious, overlooking the city, like a king surveying his domain. What she hadn't expected was to find her brother there. Hello, Clara, Nathan Winters said, stepping out from behind Victor's desk. Surprised? She hadn't seen Nathan in 5 years, not since their father's funeral, when he'd contested the will that left her the family company. He looked older, harder, wearing an expensive suit that screamed new money. You're working with Lang. Working with Oh Sister Dear, I'm the one who brought him in. Nathan's smile was all teeth and no warmth. Did you really think Victor Lang just randomly decided to target Phoenix Technologies? I've been planning this for 3 years. Every move, every betrayal, every perfectly placed piece of evidence. But why the company was Father's dream? Father's dream that he only shared with you. Nathan's composure cracked, revealing years of buried rage. His precious Clara, the genius, the chosen one. While I was sent away to boarding schools, you were in his workshop. While I begged for his attention, you were building circuits and writing code with him. Nathan, I never... Save it. You took everything from me, so I took everything from you. He pulled out a gun chrome gleaming in the city lights. And now you're going to disappear. They'll find your body in a few months, maybe. Another victim of Seattle's homeless crisis. Tragic. Phoenix stepped forward, but Nathan swung the gun toward him. Former military right. I can always tell. One more step, and I put a bullet in her head. What Nathan hadn't counted on was Clara herself. 5 years of self-defense training started after a stalker incident kicked in. She threw herself sideways as Nathan fired the bullet, shattering the window behind her. Phoenix and Wraith moved simultaneously. Phoenix disarming Nathan, while Wraith secured him with zip ties. You always underestimated me, Clara told her brother as he struggled against the restraints. Just like Father did at first. The difference is, he learned better. They found everything in Victor's safe, which Phoenix cracked in under 3 minutes. Documents linking him to 17 different corporate sabotages, blackmail material on half of Seattle's political structure, and most damning video recordings of him ordering the deaths of 3 CEOs who'd refused his takeover attempts, including tonight's planned murder of Clara. This is enough to bury him, Wraith said, copying everything to multiple encrypted drives. But you know he'll never see the inside of a cell. Too many connections. I don't want him in a cell, Clara said quietly. I want him destroyed, the same way he tried to destroy me. They regrouped at a safe house Phoenix maintained under one of his many false identities. Sophie was asleep on the couch, exhausted from her ordeal, but breathing normally thanks to medication Thunder had procured. Ethan sat beside her, standing guard even among friends. So what now? Reaper asked. We have the evidence, but Wraith's right. Lang owns too many judges, too many cops. Clara pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts until she found the one she needed. Not all of them. Judge Harrison, Detective Harrison's father, is clean. Old school hates corruption. And I know 3 journalists who would sell their souls for this story. It's not enough, Ethan said. Lang will disappear the moment this goes public. Private jet to a non-extradition country, live like a king on his offshore accounts. Then we make sure he can't run. Clara looked at each of the men who'd risked everything for a stranger and a little girl. Victor Lang is about to learn what happens when you declare war on people who actually know how to fight one. Thunder cracked his knuckles. Now you're talking our language. The plan was complex but elegant. While Clara leaked select documents to the media, creating a feeding frenzy that would keep Victor's lawyers busy, Ethan's team would systematically dismantle his escape routes. Wraith hacked and froze his offshore accounts. Phoenix sabotaged his private jet. Reaper made sure his fake passports were flagged in every database that mattered. But Victor had one more card to play. Clara was at the safe house preparing for a video call with the Washington Post when the door exploded inward. Not Victor's men, government agents, FBI, led by Special Agent Diana Cross, Detective Cross's sister. Clara Winters, you're under arrest for corporate espionage, 17 counts of fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. That's impossible, Clara protested as they cuffed her. Check the evidence. The evidence that mysteriously appeared after you broke out of police custody and kidnapped a child. Diana Cross smiled coldly. Mr. Lang has been very cooperative, providing us with years of documentation about your illegal activities, including how you've been using Phoenix Technologies to launder money for terrorist organizations. Ethan started forward, but Diana had her weapon drawn. Mr. Reed, you're also under arrest. Kidnapping, assault on police officers, breaking and entering, and oh yes, it seems you've been lying about your military record. Stolen valor is still a crime. My record is classified. Convenient. Move. As they were led away, Clara saw Victor Lang standing across the street, raising a champagne glass in mock salute. He'd once again turned their own evidence against them, used his connections to flip the narrative. But he'd made one final fatal mistake. He'd left Sophie Reed with Thunderwraith Phoenix and Reaper, and they were about to teach him why you never leave a SEAL's family in the hands of his brothers. The federal holding facility was a step up from the Seattle police station, but it was still a cage. Clara and Ethan were kept in separate wings, no communication allowed. The media was having a field day with the story Tech CEO's Secret Life of Crime, and Maintenance Man or Terrorist Operative dominated the headlines. Diana Cross personally handled Clara's interrogation, 12 hours of circular accusations and fabricated evidence. But Clara had noticed something. Diana kept checking her phone, and every time she did, her jaw tightened a little more. "Your brother's not answering, is he?" Clara said during hour 13. Diana's composure cracked slightly. "What?" Detective Raymond Cross. "Your brother. The one Victor Lang has been blackmailing for 2 years about his gambling debts. The one who's probably dead by now because he failed to deliver us properly gift-wrapped. You don't know what you're talking about. I know Victor Lang doesn't leave loose ends, and your brother became one the moment we escaped his custody." Clara leaned forward as much as the shackles would allow. "I also know you're clean, Agent Cross. Your record is spotless, which means you genuinely believe the evidence against us. But what if I could prove it's all fabricated?" "You can't. We've verified everything. Through channels Victor Lang controls. But what if there was evidence he couldn't touch? What if someone had been documenting everything from the beginning?" Diana's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and went pale. Raymond, where are you?" She put it on speaker, and Clara heard Detective Cross's shaky voice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lang made me do it. All of it. The false evidence, the arrest, everything. He has recordings of me taking bribes photos with his prostitutes. He owns me." "Where are you so—" "Doesn't matter. I'm leaving the country. But Dee, listen to me. Winters and Reed are innocent. Everything against them is fabricated. There's a safety deposit box at First National number 447. I put the real evidence there." "The real evidence. I'm sorry, Di. I'm so—" The line went dead. Diana Cross stared at her phone for a long moment, then at Clara. "If this is a trick—" "It's not. Your brother grew a conscience at the last minute. It might have saved his life. Victor doesn't know about the safety deposit box, or Raymond would already be dead." 3 hours later, Diana returned with a banker's box full of documents, USB drives, and photographs. Her face was grim as she unlocked Clara's shackles. "Everything's here," Diana said quietly. "Orders for the arson signed by Lang. The blackmail material on Marcus Chen. Even recordings of him planning your murder." She paused. "There's also evidence about my brother's involvement. He'll be arrested when we find him." "He was a victim too," Clara said, rubbing her wrists. "Lang specializes in finding people's pressure points and exploiting them." "Doesn't excuse what he did." Diana helped Clara to her feet. "We're releasing you and Mr. Reed immediately. And Clara, I'm sorry, I should have dug deeper." As Clara was being processed for release, chaos erupted in Victor Lang's world. The SEALs had been busy. Every news outlet in the country simultaneously received packages containing irrefutable evidence of his crimes. His bought judges found their own corruption exposed. His political allies abandoned him like rats from a sinking ship. But the coup de grace came from an unexpected source. Marcus Chen's daughter Sarah, the one Victor had claimed to kidnap, appeared on live television from her dorm at Cornell. She'd never been missing. The entire blackmail scenario had been a lie, one Marcus had discovered too late. But Sarah had something else, recordings her father had sent her for safekeeping, documenting every illegal order Victor had given him. By the time Clara walked out of federal custody, Victor Lang was the one in handcuffs being led away by agents who couldn't be bought because Diana Cross had personally selected them. Ethan was waiting outside Sophie in his arms. The little girl was wearing a Phoenix Technologies t-shirt someone had found for her breathing easily thanks to an emergency dose of the new treatment Clara's team had arranged. "It's over," Ethan said. "No," Clara replied, looking at the ruins of the Winters Tower in the distance. "Now we rebuild." But there was one more twist waiting. Nathan Winters had made bail his lawyers, arguing he'd been coerced by Lang. He showed up at the safe house that night, alone, unarmed, looking like a man who'd lost everything. "I didn't come to fight," he said when Phoenix opened the door, weapon drawn. I came to warn you. Clara met him in the living room, Ethan beside her, the seals positioned strategically around the space. Warn us about what? Clara asked. Victor's not done. He has a dead man's switch. If he doesn't input a code every 48 hours, documents get released that will destroy dozens of companies, including what's left of Phoenix. Economic chaos, thousands of jobs lost. He told me about it when he thought I was fully his. Nathan pulled out a drive. This contains the location of the server and the abort code. But Clara, there's a catch. There always is. The server is in his panic room at the penthouse. Biometric locks that only open for him, or Nathan hesitated. Or me. He added me to the system as his successor. Why would you help us? Ethan asked, suspicion clear in his voice. Nathan looked at his sister. Because I realized something when I saw you in Victor's office. You didn't take Father's love from me. I threw it away with my jealousy and bitterness. Father saw who I really was, and he was right to leave the company to you. He stood up. I'll get you into the panic room. After that, I'll turn myself in. It won't make up for what I've done, but it's a start. The penthouse was crawling with FBI agents cataloging evidence, but Diana Cross cleared them a path. The panic room was hidden behind a bookshelf, its biometric scanner state-of-the-art. Nathan placed his hand on the scanner, and for a moment Clara thought he'd betrayed them again. Then the locks disengaged with a soft hiss. Inside was Victor's real treasure trove, servers containing enough blackmail material to control half the country, and yes, the dead man's switch that would activate in 36 hours. Wraith went to work immediately, but after an hour he shook his head. It's beyond encrypted, quantum-level stuff. I can't crack it in time. Then we don't crack it, Clara said. We use it. Everyone turned to look at her. Victor built this as insurance, but it's also evidence. Evidence of crimes that hundreds of powerful people committed. Instead of destroying it, we give it to the FBI. All of it. Let them sort through who's guilty and who's a victim. That'll cause chaos, Diana warned. Some of these people run major corporations, government agencies. Then they should have thought of that before breaking the law, Clara replied. But we can minimize the damage. Release it strategically, give the innocent time to distance themselves. Let the guilty face justice. It took 18 hours of negotiation, but they reached an agreement. The FBI would take possession of the servers, the dead man's switch would be disabled, and the information would be used for legitimate law enforcement purposes only. Nathan kept his word, turning himself in and providing testimony against Victor Lang that would ensure he never saw freedom again. His cooperation earned him a reduced sentence, 5 years instead of 20. As dawn broke over Seattle, Clara stood in the ruins of Winter's Tower with Ethan and Sophie. The building was destroyed, but the foundation was still solid. We can rebuild, the insurance assessor was saying. With the payout and the settlement from Lang's assets being seized, you'll have more than enough capital. What do you think? Claire asked Sophie. Should we build a new tower? The little girl, breathing freely for the first time in years, thanks to the Phoenix treatment, nodded enthusiastically. Make it taller. And can it have a playground? For kids who visit a playground in a corporate tower. Ethan laughed. Why not? Clara said. We're rebuilding from scratch. We can build it however we want. She looked at Ethan. I'll need a good head of security, someone who knows the building inside and out. Interested? I'm just a maintenance man, Ethan said with a slight smile. No, Clara replied. You're the man who saved my life, who saved my company, who reminded me that there are still people willing to do the right thing even when it costs them everything. She hesitated, then added, besides, Sophie's going to need continued treatment, and it would be convenient if her father worked for the company providing it. Thunder, who'd been silently standing guard, cleared his throat. If you're hiring, ma'am, I know 4 other guys who might be interested in security positions. Clara looked at the SEALs who'd risked everything for strangers. Phoenix Technologies could use men like you, all of you. 6 months later, the new Phoenix Technologies building held its grand opening. 45 stories of gleaming steel and glass with state-of-the-art fire suppression systems that Ethan had personally overseen. The top floor wasn't executive offices. It was a research lab dedicated to developing treatments for childhood respiratory diseases, named the Sophie Reed Center for Pediatric Research. True to Sophie's request, there was a playground on the third floor visible from the street where employees' children could play while their parents worked. It had become an unexpected symbol of the company's resurrection, a corporation that put family first. Victor Lang watched the coverage from his federal prison cell where he'd served 3 consecutive life sentences. His empire was gone, his allies imprisoned or fled, his very name synonymous with corporate corruption. Nathan Winters watched from minimum security where he spent his days teaching business ethics to other inmates trying to earn redemption one small act at a time. Detective Raymond Cross watched from witness protection, his testimony having helped convict 17 corrupt officials. But in the Phoenix Technologies lobby, none of that mattered. Clara stood with her new executive team, including a head of security who still wore maintenance boots with his suit, and watched Sophie cut the ribbon with oversized scissors. "You know," Ethan said quietly, 6 months ago I was just checking pipes in a basement. "And I was about to lose everything," Clara replied. "Funny how the worst night of your life can lead to the best things." Sophie ran over, grabbing both their hands. "Can we go to the playground now?" They looked at each other over her head, 2 people who'd been through hell and come out the other side not just intact, but stronger. "Yeah," Ethan said, squeezing his daughter's hand. "Let's go to the playground." As they walked through the building that had risen from ashes past employees who'd stayed loyal through the chaos toward a future none of them could have imagined, Clara realized something. Victor Lang had been wrong about everything, but especially about one thing he'd thought: power came from money, from control, from making others fear you. But real power came from something else entirely. It came from the choice to save a stranger in a burning building, from the decision to trust when everything said not to, from the courage to rebuild when it would be easier to walk away, and from the simple act of holding a child's hand and heading to a playground in a corporate tower, because sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is dare to be human in a world that rewards being anything but. The Seattle rain that had started this story continued to fall, but now it felt different. Now it felt like a blessing washing the city clean for whatever came next. The playground's laughter faded into memory as autumn settled over Seattle, bringing with it a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Clara stood in her new office, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows that Ethan had insisted be reinforced with bulletproof glass. 6 months of rebuilding had given them a false sense of security, she realized now, staring at the photograph that had been slipped under her door during the night. It showed Sophie at her school, taken yesterday with a telephoto lens. "How did they get past security?" Clara asked, though she already knew the answer would terrify her more than not knowing. Ethan held the photo with steady hands, but she could see the muscle jumping in his jaw the way his breathing had shifted to the controlled pattern he used before violence. They didn't. This was taken from outside the school perimeter, professional surveillance. He turned the photo over, reading the message scrawled on the back for the 3rd time. "Victor Lang sends his regards from prison. The game isn't over." "That's impossible," Clara said. "He's in solitary confinement, no communication privileges." "Men like Lang don't need privileges. They buy them." Ethan pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Thundercode 7. Sophie's school. Now." He looked at Clara. "We're pulling her out until we know what this is." But Sophie wasn't at school. The principal's panicked call came just as Thunder arrived at the empty classroom. She'd been picked up an hour ago by someone with proper authorization, someone who'd known all the code words, had the right identification. The security footage showed Sophie leaving willingly with a woman in a Phoenix Technologies uniform. "Jennifer Walsh," Clara breathed, recognizing the face on the grainy footage. Marcus's supposed wife. Victor's attorney. She was supposed to be in witness protection. Or that's what they wanted us to think. Ethan was already moving, grabbing gear from the concealed cabinet he'd installed his first week as security chief. This isn't random. The timing, using Jennifer, someone's orchestrating this from inside. Clara's phone buzzed. Unknown number, but she knew who it would be. "Hello, Clara." The voice wasn't Victor's. It was feminine, cold, familiar, in a way that made Clara's skin crawl. "I have something that belongs to your security chief. Sweet little thing, bit wheezy though, forgot her inhaler again." "Jennifer," Clara said, putting it on speaker. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. What Victor promised me before you destroyed him. Phoenix Technologies. The patents, the research, all of it. You have 2 hours to transfer everything to my offshore holdings, or Sophie Reed learns what happens to little girls who breathe too much water. If you hurt her. You'll what, kill me? Your boyfriend already wants to do that. Get in line. Jennifer's laugh was brittle. 2 hours, Clara. The transfer codes will be sent to your phone. And just so we're clear, if I see a single cop FBI agent or Navy SEAL near me, she dies. I have nothing left to lose. The line went dead. Ethan stood perfectly still for exactly 3 seconds, then exploded into motion. She's lying about something. Jennifer Walsh is a corporate lawyer, not a kidnapper. Someone else is pulling her strings. Does it matter? Clara asked. She has Sophie. Everything matters. The why tells us the how, and the how tells us where. He pulled up Jennifer's file on his secure terminal. Look at this. 3 weeks ago, she was supposedly relocated to Miami under witness protection. But here, he pulled up another screen. Credit card charges in Seattle for the past week. Someone wanted us to think she was gone. Thunder burst through the door with Phoenix and Wraith. Reaper's tracking her phone signal. She's not even trying to hide it. Warehouse District, Pier 47. Another warehouse, Phoenix muttered. These people have no imagination. Or they're counting on us thinking that, Ethan said. This is too easy, too obvious. He studied the map. Pier 47 is isolated single-access road surrounded by water on 3 sides. It's a kill box. So we don't go, Clara said, pulling up her own computer. We give her what she wants. Everyone turned to stare at her. Clara, we can't just hand over the company. We're not. We're going to give her exactly what she wants, and it's going to destroy her. Clara's fingers flew across the keyboard. Jennifer's smart, but she's not a tech person. She won't know the difference between real patents and elaborate forgeries until it's too late. That might buy us time, but no, you don't understand. Clara pulled up code she'd been working on for months. Project Trojan. I developed it after Victor's attack, a way to protect our intellectual property. Any unauthorized access to our systems triggers a virus that doesn't just delete the stolen data. It traces back through every system it touches, documenting everything. Every crime, every connection, every hidden asset. Wraith whistled low. That's beautiful and terrifying. It's also highly illegal, Clara admitted. But kidnapping children is worse. The moment Jennifer accesses the files, we'll know every system she's connected to, every person she's working with. She'll still have Sophie, Ethan pointed out. Not for long. Clara met his eyes. Because while she's distracted by the transfer, you're going to get your daughter back. The plan was dangerous in its simplicity. Clara would initiate the transfer, making it look legitimate enough to keep Jennifer occupied. Meanwhile, Ethan and his team would approach the warehouse from the water, the one direction Jennifer wouldn't expect. There's something else, Thunder said, studying satellite footage of the pier. Heat signatures show 12 people in that warehouse. Jennifer didn't assemble a team that size alone. Then who's really behind this? Phoenix asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. Diana Cross called Clara's private line just as they were preparing to leave. Don't go to Pier 47, Diana said without preamble. It's a setup. We know, but Sophie's not there. She never was. The heat signatures are decoys, probably homeless people Jennifer paid to stay there. The real location is somewhere else. Clara felt her heart stop. How do you know this? Because my brother just called me. Raymond's back in Seattle and he's with them. Not by choice, they're threatening his daughter now, my niece. Clara, this is bigger than Jennifer Walsh. Someone's been planning this for months using Victor's imprisonment as cover. Who? I don't know yet, but Raymond managed to send me a partial location before they caught him. Sophie's being held at... The line crackled with static. Medical facility underground. The call dropped. Ethan was already cross-referencing medical facilities with underground levels in Seattle. There are 17 possibilities, but if we narrow it down to ones with connections to Phoenix Technologies... The old Prometheus Labs, Clara said suddenly. We acquired them 3 years ago for their respiratory research. The building's been condemned, scheduled for demolition, but the underground levels were designed for hazardous materials. They're completely sealed with their own ventilation system. Perfect for holding someone with breathing problems, Wraith said grimly. Control the air control, the prisoner. It's also where we stored the original Phoenix prototypes, Clara added. The ones that failed trials because they were too dangerous. Jennifer wouldn't know that, but whoever's really behind this might. They moved out in two teams. Clara and Wraith would handle the digital deception, making the transfer look real while tracking every connection. Ethan, Thunder, Phoenix, and Reaper would retrieve Sophie. The Prometheus Labs building stood like a tombstone against the Seattle skyline, its windows dark, its parking lot cracked with weeds pushing through abandoned asphalt. But Ethan's trained eye caught the subtle signs of recent activity. Fresh tire tracks, security cameras that should have been dead but weren't, the too perfect arrangement of debris around the entrance. Perimeter's wired, Reaper reported through comms. Professional job. Someone wants to know we're coming. Let them, Ethan said. Phoenix, you're with me through the loading dock. Thunder and Reaper create noise at the main entrance. Draw them out. They moved like shadows, muscle memory from countless operations guiding them through the darkness. The loading dock's lock had been recently replaced, another sign they were in the right place. Phoenix had it open in seconds. The interior was a maze of abandoned laboratories and empty offices, but Ethan followed the faint hum of active ventilation systems down, always down into the building's bones. They found the first guard on sub-level 2, professionally equipped but sloppy in his positioning. Ethan took him down silently, zip-tying him to a pipe. Thunder report. 4 tangos engaged at main entrance. They're buying it. They kept descending. Sub-level 3 was medical storage, the air thick with the smell of old chemicals. Sub-level 4 was where things got interesting. The dust had been disturbed recently, footprints leading to a reinforced door marked Hazardous Materials Authorized Personnel Only. Phoenix started to pick the lock, but Ethan stopped him. Something was wrong. Too quiet. Too easy. That's when they heard it. Sophie's voice, tinny and distorted through a speaker system. Daddy? Daddy, I can't breathe right. The air tastes funny. Ethan's control nearly shattered, but Phoenix grabbed his arm. It could be a recording. Daddy, please, the lady said you'd come, but you're not here, and I'm scared. And Sophie's voice dissolved into coughing, the sound of a child struggling for air. Real or recording, Ethan couldn't wait. He kicked the door open, moving in fast and low, weapon raised. The room beyond was a medical laboratory, and Sophie was there, sealed inside a glass containment unit designed for hazardous materials testing. She was alive, conscious, but her breathing was labored, her small hands pressed against the glass. Daddy. Jennifer Walsh stood beside the containment unit, but she wasn't alone. 3 men in tactical gear flanked her, weapons trained on the door. And behind them, working at a computer terminal with his back to them, was someone Ethan hadn't expected. Dr. Marcus Chen turned around very much alive, despite having thrown himself from a 42nd floor window 6 months ago. Hello, Mr. Reed, Marcus said calmly. I apologize for the dramatics, but it was necessary to get everyone's attention. You're supposed to be dead, Phoenix said, weapon trained on the nearest guard. A necessary fiction. The body that fell was already dead, a homeless man with my general build, terminal cancer patient who sold his corpse for enough money to make his last days comfortable. I went out the executive elevator during the chaos. Marcus gestured to the containment unit. Your daughter is safe for now. The atmosphere in there is actually optimized for her condition. Better than normal air, really. Let her out, Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. Of course. As soon as Clara completes the transfer. The real transfer, not the Trojan horse she's attempting to upload. Marcus smiled at Ethan's surprise. Did you think I wouldn't know about Project Trojan? I helped design Phoenix Technologies' security architecture. I know every backdoor, every failsafe, every clever little trap Clara built. Why? Ethan asked. Buying time while calculating angles, distances, probabilities. You were her friend. I was her employee, Marcus corrected. Watching her take credit for innovations, I contributed to building her empire on foundations I helped lay. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was my daughter. Sarah's safe at Cornell showed. Sarah is dead. Marcus's composure cracked, showing the madness beneath. She died 3 years ago. Drug overdose at a party thrown by Clara's brother Nathan, covered up by the Winters family money. The girl at Cornell is an actress hired by Victor to maintain my cover story. Clara didn't know. Clara didn't care. She was too busy being the genius CEO to notice her best friend was drowning in grief. Too focused on her company to see that I'd been replaced by someone who wanted revenge more than anything. He turned back to his computer. But I'm better than Victor. Smarter. I don't just want to destroy Clara's company. I want to take it and transform it into something that would horrify her. Weapons development, chemical warfare applications of her precious Phoenix treatment. Let her name be associated with death instead of healing. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. Marcus, you said no one would get hurt. No one important will get hurt, Marcus replied dismissively. The girl's just leverage. Once I have what I need, she can go back to her father, probably. That probably was all Ethan needed to hear. He shot the nearest guard with a tranquilizer dart, while Phoenix took the second. The third managed to fire, but Ethan was already moving, pulling the man's arm up so the bullet struck the ceiling. Thunder and Reaper burst through the door behind them, having cleared the upper levels. Jennifer dropped her weapon immediately, hands raised. I'm out. This isn't what I signed up for. But Marcus was faster than anyone expected. He hit a button on his console, and the containment unit began filling with a yellow gas. Chlorine gas diluted but still toxic, Marcus said calmly. Sophie has about 90 seconds before permanent lung damage. The only way to stop it is with this. He held up a kill switch. And the only way to get this is to complete the real transfer. Clara has 60 seconds to decide. Ethan raised his weapon. I'll shoot you. And my dead man's switch releases pure chlorine. Sophie dies in seconds instead of minutes. Marcus smiled. I learned from Victor's mistakes. Always have a backup plan. Clara's voice came through the comms. Ethan, I can see everything through your body cam. Tell him I'll do it. Clara, no. It's just a company, Ethan. Sophie's a life. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain beneath. Marcus, you win. Sending the real transfer now. Marcus watched his screen smile widening as the progress bar filled. See how easy that was? All this could have been avoided if Clara had just... The lights went out. In the darkness, Ethan heard glass shatter. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, revealing Diana Cross and a full FBI tactical team. The containment unit was broken. Sophie and Diana's arms being rushed to a waiting medical team. The kill switch was in pieces on the floor, destroyed by a sniper's bullet through the window Ethan hadn't even noticed. Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, and about 30 other charges I'll think of on the way to booking, Diana said. Marcus laughed wild and broken. You're too late. The transfer's complete. I own Phoenix Technologies now. No, Clara said, walking into the room with Wraith beside her. You own a shell company I created 6 months ago. Phoenix Technologies was never incorporated in Delaware like you thought. That was another fiction. The real company is held in a trust protected by so many legal layers it would take years to untangle. But the patents are all filed under my personal name, not the company's. Another lesson learned from Victor's attack. Clara looked at her former friend with a mixture of pity and disgust. I'm sorry about Sarah, Marcus. I'm sorry I didn't see your pain, but this ends now. Marcus lunged for something on the desk, a gun, a weapon. It didn't matter. Ethan's fist connected with his jaw before he could reach it, dropping him cold. Sophie, Ethan called out, already moving toward the medical team. She's okay, Diana assured him. The gas was mostly theatrical, scary but not concentrated enough to cause real damage. Though I'd like to know how you knew to call us. Claire and Ethan exchanged glances. They hadn't called anyone. If you didn't call them, Ethan said slowly, then who? I did, Nathan Winters said, stepping out from behind the FBI team. He was wearing an ankle monitor, clearly on supervised release. My lawyer got me a deal. Early release in exchange for helping take down Marcus. I've been feeding information to Agent Cross for weeks. You knew Marcus was alive? Clara asked. Suspected. Some financial irregularities that only made sense if he was still moving money. Plus, I knew about Sarah's real death. I was there that night, Clara. I tried to save her, but... He shook his head. I've been living with that guilt for 3 years. When I realized Marcus was using it as justification for revenge, I had to act. Why help us? Ethan asked, still suspicious. Because I've had 6 months to think about what I almost became, Nathan replied. And because someone needs to stop the cycle of revenge before it destroys everyone. Sophie's cough brought Ethan's attention back to what mattered. She was breathing normally now, the Phoenix treatment having strengthened her lungs enough to handle the stress. But she was scared, clinging to him as the medical team checked her over. I want to go home, Sophie whispered. We will baby. We're going home. But home had become a complicated concept. The safe house was compromised, Ethan's apartment was too vulnerable, and Clara's penthouse felt like a fortress built for one. Stay with me, Clara said quietly, watching Sophie curl against her father. Both of you, I have plenty of room, and after today, I don't want to be alone. It wasn't a romantic invitation, not yet. It was two people who'd been through hell recognizing they were stronger together than apart. Ethan nodded, and something shifted between them, a possibility neither was ready to name. The aftermath was messier than the crisis. Marcus's conspiracy had tentacles reaching into Phoenix Technologies' structure employees who'd been turned or bought. Clara spent weeks cleaning house, rebuilding trust, ensuring nothing like this could happen again. Jennifer Walsh cut a deal testifying against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. She revealed the full extent of the plan. Marcus had been planning this for 2 years, using Victor's attack as cover for his own revenge scheme. Detective Raymond Cross came out of hiding to testify as well, his courage in warning Diana having earned him a degree of redemption, though not forgiveness. Through it all, Ethan and Sophie stayed at Clara's penthouse. What started as a temporary arrangement began to feel permanent. Sophie's toys appeared in the living room. Ethan's coffee mug claimed a spot in the kitchen. Clara found herself looking forward to their shared dinners, to Sophie's homework sessions at the dining table, to the quiet evenings when Ethan would read to his daughter while Clara worked nearby, just enjoying the sound of their voices. 3 weeks after Marcus's arrest, Clara was working late in her home office when Ethan knocked on the door. Sophie's asleep, he said. Thought you might want some company. She looked up from her screen, seeing him holding 2 cups of tea. He'd learned her preference for chamomile when stressed. I'm not great company right now. The board wants a full security review. The FDA is questioning the Phoenix trials because of Marcus's sabotage. And somehow the media thinks this is all my fault. It's not, Ethan said, simply setting the tea beside her. None of it is. I should have seen Marcus's pain. Should have known. Stop. He turned her chair to face him. I've played that game. Should have seen the IED. Should have saved more of my squad. Should have been a better husband, so maybe my ex-wife wouldn't have left. Should have is poison, Clara. It'll eat you alive if you let it. She looked at him, really looked at him, the scars he carried visible and invisible. The strength that wasn't just physical but emotional, spiritual even. How do you do it? Keep going after everything. I remember what I'm fighting for. He glanced toward the door, toward where Sophie slept safely. And lately that's been more than just my daughter. The admission hung between them, fragile and important. Ethan, Clara started, but he shook his head. I'm not asking for anything, just wanted you to know. Whatever this is, whatever we're building here, it matters to me. You matter to me. Before she could respond, alerts started flooding her screen. Someone was attempting to access Phoenix Technologies' servers using Marcus's old credentials. That's impossible, Clara said, fingers flying across the keyboard. We locked everything down. But the attack was sophisticated, using backdoors even Clara hadn't known existed. Within minutes, they were locked out of their own systems. A video call request appeared on her personal laptop. Against her better judgment, she accepted it. Victor Lang's face filled the screen broadcast from his prison cell. Hello, Clara. Hello, Mr. Reed. I thought it was time we had a chat about the future. How are you? Making this call. Having computer access. Orchestrating everything from in here. Victor smiled. Money, dear Clara. Unlimited money and the knowledge of where bodies are buried. Did you really think Marcus came up with his plan alone? He was always too emotional, too sloppy. He needed guidance, my guidance. You used him, Ethan said. I gave him purpose. There's a difference. Victor leaned back, orange jumpsuit, unable to diminish his presence. But Marcus has served his purpose. Now it's time for the real game to begin. What game? Clara demanded. The one where you realize that destroying me was the worst mistake of your life. You see, from in here, I have nothing but time. Time to plan to recruit to slowly dismantle everything you're trying to build. His smile widened. Starting with your new FDA approval. Check your email. Clara did, finding a message from the FDA. The Phoenix treatment trials were suspended indefinitely pending investigation into data tampering. That's just the beginning, Victor continued. Every week something else will go wrong. A supplier will back out. A key employee will quit. A safety inspection will fail. Death by 1,000 cuts, Clara. Unless what? Unless you come visit me, alone. No surveillance, no recordings, just you and me discussing terms. Absolutely not, Ethan said. But Victor wasn't looking at him. His eyes were fixed on Clara. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the Phoenix treatment gets buried so deep in regulatory hell that Sophie Reed will age out of treatment eligibility before it ever sees the market again. The call ended. Clara stared at the blank screen, feeling the walls closing in. He's right. He can do it. From prison with just phone calls and letters, he can destroy everything. Then we stop him, Ethan said. How? He's in federal maximum security. We can't touch him. No, Ethan agreed. But we can make him irrelevant. He pulled out his phone, dialing a number Clara didn't recognize. It's me. Yes, I know what time it is. I need to call in that favor. The big one. I understand the cost. Yes, I'm sure. Who was that? Clara asked when he hung up. Someone who owes me a life debt. Someone with the power to make Victor Lang disappear. You mean kill him? No, I mean make him cease to exist in any way that matters. No more phone calls, no more letters, no more influence, complete isolation, the kind reserved for terrorists and traitors. That's not possible. Victor has too many connections. His connections are all financial or political. The person I just called transcends both. Ethan met her eyes. But it'll cost me everything I have left from my military service. My pension, my benefits, even my security clearance. I'll just be a maintenance man again. Clara stood crossing to him. You do that. Give up everything. Not everything, he corrected, taking her hands. I'd still have Sophie. And if you'll let me, I'd still have this, us, whatever we are or might become. She kissed him, then soft and certain tasting promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, Sophie stood in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Are you guys finally together? She asked with 7-year-old directness. Ethan laughed, scooping her up. What do you think, kiddo? Sophie looked between them, then nodded decisively. Good. Clara makes better pancakes than you, Daddy. The moment was perfect in its simplicity, but Clara's phone buzzed with another alert. This time it wasn't Victor or the FDA or any external threat. It was from her building's security system. Someone was in the Phoenix Technologies lab. Someone using her personal access codes. That's impossible, she said for the second time that night. Only 3 people have those codes. Me, you, and Marcus. Ethan finished. But he's in custody. Diana Cross answered on the first ring when Clara called. Before you ask, yes, Marcus Chen is still in his cell. I'm looking at him right now on the monitor. Then who's in my lab? There was a pause, then Diana swore. The transport logs. Someone checked Marcus out for a medical evaluation 3 hours ago, but if he's still in his cell, then who? Sarah, Clara breathed. Marcus's daughter, the real Sarah. That's impossible, she's dead. But Clara was already pulling up the security footage from the lab. The figure moving through the restricted areas was young female and bore an undeniable resemblance to Marcus Chen. She faked her death, though, Ethan said, understanding immediately. Just like her father faked his. This whole thing, Victor, Marcus, all of it, it's been about getting her into the lab. But why? The answer came as they watched Sarah Chen access the secured storage where the failed Phoenix prototypes were kept. The ones that had been too dangerous for human trials. The ones that could be weaponized. She's not stealing them, Clara realized with growing horror. She's releasing them. The ventilation systems in the Phoenix Technologies building suddenly activated at full power spreading whatever Sarah had released through 45 floors of offices where the night cleaning crew was working. "We need to evacuate the building," Ethan said, already moving. "Now." But even as Clara triggered the fire alarms remotely, she knew they were too late. Sarah Chen had just turned her father's revenge fantasy into reality using Phoenix Technologies' own research to create a weapon. And somewhere in his prison cell, Victor Lang was probably smiling, knowing that even in defeat, he'd found a way to win. The real war was just beginning. The evacuation sirens screamed through the Seattle night as 43 people stumbled out of the Phoenix Technologies building coughing and gasping. Ethan counted them twice, his military training demanding precision even in chaos. The cleaning crew, 2 security guards, a handful of engineers pulling an all-nighter, all accounted for but all showing the same symptoms. Burning eyes, labored, breathing, skin flushed with an unnatural pink tinge. "It's not lethal," Clara said, reading the preliminary analysis on her tablet, while EMTs set up triage stations in the parking lot. "Whatever Sarah released, it's designed to incapacitate, not kill. The compound is breaking down already half-life of maybe 6 hours." "That doesn't make sense," Ethan said, watching Sophie through the penthouse window 30 floors up and 3 blocks away, making sure she stayed inside with the air filtration on maximum. "If you're going to weaponize something, why make it temporary?" "Because killing people brings the FBI, the CDC, Homeland Security," Diana Cross said, arriving with a hazmat team. "But this is assault at worst. She'll do 5 years instead of life." She paused, studying the scene. "Unless this is just the test run." That thought chilled Clara more than the October wind. The prototypes Sarah took there were 12 variants. She only released 1. "Where are the others?" Before Clara could answer, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, but she recognized the voice immediately when she answered. "Hello, Miss Winters," Sarah Chen said. She sounded nothing like the grieving daughter Marcus had described. Her voice was controlled, clinical, almost amused. "I hope you're enjoying my little demonstration." "Sarah, please." "Dr. Chen," Sarah corrected. "I did finish my PhD despite what my father believes. Biochemistry with a focus on aerosol transmission vectors. Very useful considering your company's work." Ethan had already signaled Diana to start tracing the call. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted, Mr. Reed, to prove that my father was wrong about me. He thought I was weak, needed protecting, needed revenge on my behalf. But I'm not weak, I'm just patient." There was a rustling sound like papers being shuffled. "I've been watching you all for 3 years, watching Clara build her empire on research my father contributed to, watching Victor Lang play his power games, watching my father plan his elaborate revenge, all of them missing the real opportunity." "Which is?" Clara asked. "Phoenix Technologies has created something that could change the world, a treatment that repairs damaged lung tissue at the cellular level. Do you have any idea what that means? Not just for asthmatics like sweet little Sophie, but for everyone." Sarah's voice took on an edge of excitement. "Soldiers exposed to chemical weapons, cities choking on pollution, the millions who'll need new lungs as climate change accelerates. You're sitting on the cure for the 21st century's biggest health crisis, and you're doing what with it? FDA trials, regulatory approval, corporate bureaucracy. We're ensuring it's safe." "Safe?" Sarah laughed. "Like the variant I just released was safe." "That was Phoenix 3.0. Ms. Winters, your failed prototype that you locked away because it caused temporary respiratory distress. But what you didn't realize, what your limited testing never discovered, is that the distress is followed by enhancement. Those 43 people. In 6 hours, when the compound fully metabolizes, they'll have lung capacity 20% above baseline. They'll breathe easier than they have in years." Clara pulled up the Phoenix 3.0 files, scanning the data with new eyes. Sarah was right. The initial distress response had caused them to abandon the formula. But if it led to enhancement afterward— "You experimented on innocent people," Ethan said flatly. "I gave them a gift, for free. No insurance companies, no prescriptions, no corporate profit margins. Just healing." Sarah's tone hardened. "But that was just the preview. Phoenix 4.0 through 11.0 are already in position around the city. Water treatment plants, HVAC systems in major buildings, Even the ventilation for the Seattle Underground tour. One command from me and the entire city becomes my test group. That's terrorism, Diana said loudly enough for the phone to pick up. That's revolution, Sarah countered. But I'm not unreasonable. I'll give you a choice, Clara. Release the Phoenix formula, all of it, every variant, completely open source, or I'll do it for you. Literally. Into the air, Seattle breathes. People could die, Clara protested, without proper dosing medical supervision. Fewer people than die waiting for FDA approval while you protect your profit margins. You have 24 hours to decide. Oh, and don't bother trying to find the devices. There are hundreds, and they're all on independent triggers. Remove one. The others activate immediately. The call ended, leaving them staring at each other in the parking lot while emergency crews worked around them. We have to find her, Ethan said. We have to find the devices, Diana countered. If she's telling the truth about the triggers, she is, Clara said quietly. Sarah Chen didn't fake her death and spend 3 years planning this to bluff now. She looked at the Phoenix building, its lights still flashing with evacuation warnings. She's right about one thing. We have been slow, cautious. People have died waiting. Clara, you can't seriously be considering. I'm considering everything. Clara cut Ethan off, including the fact that my technology is about to be used as a weapon whether I cooperate or not. They established a command center in Clara's penthouse. The living room transformed into a war room with computers, maps, and the combined resources of the FBI, Phoenix Technologies, and Ethan's SEAL team. Sophie watched from the hallway, clutching the stuffed bear Ethan had given her, understanding that something bad was happening, but not quite what. Go back to bed, sweetie, Ethan said gently. Is the bad lady going to hurt people? Sophie asked with that devastating directness children possessed. Ethan knelt beside his daughter. We're going to stop her. But she's sick, isn't she? Like me, but different. Sick in her thoughts. The insight from a 7-year-old made Ethan pause. Yeah, baby, she's sick in a different way. Then maybe she needs different medicine, Sophie said, and padded back to bed, leaving the adults to contemplate the wisdom of innocence. Thunder was the first to make a breakthrough, his fingers flying across his laptop. Got something. Sarah Chen didn't just disappear 3 years ago, she legally died. Death certificate filed in King County. Body cremated, the works. But here's the interesting part. The doctor who signed the certificate. He vanished 2 weeks later. His medical license was used 6 months ago to order restricted chemicals. She's been planning this longer than we thought, Phoenix said. This isn't reactive. This is strategic. Wraith pulled up financial records. Money trails don't lie. Someone's been funding Sarah, and it's not her father. These transactions go back 5 years before Marcus even started his revenge plot. Clara leaned over his shoulder, recognizing the routing numbers. Those are Victor Lang's shell companies. But why would he fund Sarah before any of this started? Because Victor plays the long game, Ethan said, understanding clicking into place. He didn't just want to destroy you, Clara. He wanted to own what came after. Sarah was his backup plan. If he couldn't take Phoenix Technologies legally, she'd take it literally. But that doesn't make sense, Diana protested. Victor's in prison. He gains nothing from this. Clara's laptop chimed with an encrypted message. She opened it carefully. Wraith scanning for viruses. It was a video file time-stamped an hour ago. Victor Lang sat in what was clearly not a prison cell, but a luxurious office. He was wearing an expensive suit, not an orange jumpsuit, and behind him, through floor-to-ceiling windows, was a view of Hong Kong's skyline. Hello, Clara, Victor said, smiling that predator's smile she'd grown to hate. By now you've realized that the man in federal prison isn't me, but a very well-paid double. Amazing what desperate people will do for their family's financial security. I've been in Hong Kong for 3 months watching waiting orchestrating. Ethan's phone was already out calling his contact. The isolation order will be served on a man who looks like me but isn't me, Victor continued as if he could hear them. Sarah Chen is brilliant, isn't she? Wasted on her father's pedestrian revenge fantasies. I gave her purpose, resources, and most importantly, freedom to realize her vision. Which is, Claire asked the recording, though she knew it couldn't answer. But Victor had anticipated the question. To prove that the old order is obsolete. Corporations, governments, regulatory bodies, all the structures that slow progress and concentrate power. Sarah's going to democratize breathing, Clara. Force your hand to release what you've been hoarding. And when she does, when Phoenix Technologies' patents become worthless, I'll be there to build something new from the ashes. Again. The video ended with coordinates and a time midnight 12 hours away. He wants to meet, Clara said. It's a trap, Ethan, Diana, and Thunder said simultaneously. Of course it's a trap, but it's also our only lead to Sarah. Clara stood, decision made. I'm going. Not alone, Ethan said firmly. He'll expect you, any of you, but he won't expect this. She picked up her phone, scrolling to a contact she hadn't used in over a year. Marcus? It's Clara. We need to talk about your daughter. The Federal Holding Facility's visiting room was sterile and watched, but Marcus Chen looked like he'd aged a decade in the weeks since his arrest. When he saw Clara, his expression cycled through shame, anger, and finally settled on exhaustion. She's alive, Clara said without preamble. Sarah, she's alive, and she's about to do something terrible in your name. Marcus's face went white. That's impossible. I saw her body. I identified her. You saw what she wanted you to see, just like you showed us what we expected to see when you died. Clara slid the tablet across the table, showing him the security footage of Sarah in the Phoenix lab. She's been planning this for years, Marcus, using your grief, your anger as cover for her own agenda. Marcus stared at his daughter's image, tears streaming down his face. My God, what have I done? You can help us stop her. How I'm in here, she's out there, and clearly I never knew her at all. But you know how she thinks. You trained her, Marcus. All those years in the lab together, all those late nights discussing theory, you shaped her mind. Clara leaned forward. Where would she go? What would be her end game? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, then spoke slowly. Sarah always believed science should be pure. No patents, no profits, no barriers between discovery and application. She wrote her undergraduate thesis on Jonas Salk refusing to patent the polio vaccine, said he was the last real scientist before everything became corporate. So this is ideological. For her, yes. For Victor Lang. It's just opportunity. Marcus met Clara's eyes. There's something else. Sarah has a condition, not asthma, but something similar, genetic, progressive. She's been searching for a cure her whole life, and when she found out about Phoenix, he trailed off, understanding dawning. She didn't fake her death to help me. She did it to steal time, to find a way to heal herself before her condition killed her. What condition? Pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. Rare, usually fatal by 30. She's 26 now. Marcus grabbed Clara's hands across the table, desperate. Clara, if she's releasing Phoenix variants into the air, she's not just testing them on the city. She's testing them on herself, looking for the one that will save her. Clara pulled her hands free, standing. Then we need to find her before she decides the whole city is worth sacrificing for her cure. Wait, Marcus called as she turned to leave. The place Victor specified, I know it. It's where I was supposed to meet Sarah 3 years ago, the night she died. She never showed, but Victor did. Said she'd overdosed, that Nathan was responsible. It's where he recruited me. Why there? Because it used to be a Prometheus Labs facility. Underground, abandoned, perfect for someone who needs specialized atmospheric controls to survive. Clara ran from the building, already calling Ethan. They had a location, but more importantly, they had understanding. Sarah Chen wasn't a terrorist or a revolutionary. She was a dying woman desperate enough to risk everything for a chance to breathe. The Prometheus facility sat beneath Pike Place Market, forgotten beneath the tourist foot traffic and fish-throwing vendors. The entrance was through a maintenance tunnel that hadn't been used since the 1960s, according to city records. But the dust had been disturbed recently, and someone had disabled the locks with surgical precision. Ethan led the team and Clara behind him, despite his protest, Diana and her FBI team holding the perimeter. The tunnel descended at a sharp angle, the air growing thicker, more processed with each step. They could hear the hum of industrial equipment, the kind used to maintain clean rooms and biological containment. Atmospheric processor. Wraith identified reading his instruments. She's got this whole place sealed and scrubbed. Air quality is actually better than outside. They found the first device 3 levels down, a metal canister connected to the building's ventilation system, ready to release its contents into Pike Place Market above. Phoenix examined it carefully. Timer shows 10 hours remaining. But look, he pointed to a secondary mechanism. Motion sensor. We move it, it triggers. Same with all of them, probably, Thunder said, mapping the facility on his tablet. I'm reading at least 30 devices throughout this complex, all networked. They kept descending, following the lights and the increasingly clean air. The facility opened into a vast underground laboratory equipment that looked salvaged from Phoenix Technologies and Prometheus Labs, arranged in a careful pattern. At the center, in a clean room behind glass walls, Sarah Chen worked at a computer terminal. She was smaller than Clara had expected, thin to the point of frailty, with an oxygen cannula running to a tank beside her chair. When she turned to face them, Clara could see the family resemblance to Marcus, but also something else, the desperate brilliance of someone running out of time. "Miss Winters," Sarah said through the intercom, her voice slightly breathless. "Mr. Reed, I wasn't expecting you so soon." "It's over, Sarah," Diana called out, weapon drawn but not aimed. "Disable the devices and come out." Sarah laughed, triggering a coughing fit that lasted 30 seconds. When she recovered, there was blood on the tissue she'd used. "Over, Agent Cross, I'm dying. It's been over for me since I was diagnosed at 14. This is just the epilogue." "Your father thinks you're dead," Clara said, approaching the glass. "He's been destroying lives trying to avenge you." "My father was always too emotional, too focused on human connections instead of scientific truth." Sarah turned back to her computer. "Did you know your Phoenix formula is only 3 molecular adjustments away from curing my condition? 3 tiny changes and I could breathe normally, live normally, have a normal lifespan." "Then let us help you," Clara offered. "Disable the devices, work with us, and we'll find those 3 adjustments together." "Together," Sarah repeated mockingly. "Like you worked together with my father, using his ideas, his research, then pushing him aside when he became inconvenient. That's not what happened. Isn't it?" Sarah pulled up files on her screen. "I have everything, Ms. Winters. Every email, every lab note, every stolen moment of inspiration that you claimed as your own. My father was weak accepting his role as your shadow. But I won't be anyone's shadow." She hit a key. An alarm started blaring throughout the facility. 9 hours early, but who's counting?" Sarah said, standing with effort. "The devices are activating. In 60 seconds, Seattle becomes the world's largest clinical trial." Ethan moved toward the glass, but Sarah held up a dead man's switch. "Break the seal on this room, and I release everything at once. No controlled dispersal, just 12 Phoenix variants flooding the air simultaneously. Most people will survive. Some won't. Do you want that on your conscience?" "You're bluffing," Diana said. "Agent Cross. I spent 3 years planning this. I faked my own death, manipulated my father, partnered with Victor Lang, and built all of this while dying by degrees. Do I strike you as someone who bluffs?" The countdown on her screen showed 45 seconds. "There has to be another way," Clara said desperately. "There is," Sarah replied. "You can watch. You can witness the democratization of health. No more patents, no more exclusivity, no more deciding who deserves to breathe based on their insurance coverage. The Phoenix formula belongs to everyone now." 30 seconds. Sophie's voice came through Ethan's earpiece. Thunder had patched her through from the penthouse. "Daddy! The sick lady needs different medicine, remember?" Ethan looked at Clara, something passing between them. "Sarah," he said, "you're right, you're dying. The Phoenix formula can't save you. But what if something else could?" 20 seconds. "Nothing else exists." "Your father's research," Clara interrupted, understanding. "The work he was doing before Phoenix, the cellular regeneration project. We shelved it because it was too unstable, but for someone who's already dying." 10 seconds. Sarah's finger hovered over the release button. "You're lying." "I'm not." Clara pulled out her phone, accessing Phoenix Technologies' deepest archives. "Look, Project Lazarus, your father's masterwork before we pivoted to respiratory treatments." 5 seconds. Sarah looked at the screen. Clara held up her eyes, scanning the formulae faster than seemed possible. 3 seconds. "This could work," Sarah breathed. 1 second. She disabled the countdown. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Sarah's labored breathing and the collective exhale of everyone in the room. "Show me everything," Sarah demanded. For the next hour, Clara and Sarah worked together, separated by glass, but united in purpose. The Lazarus Project had been Marcus's attempt to create universal cellular regeneration, abandoned because the energy requirements would kill a healthy person. But for someone whose cells were already failing, who had nothing left to lose, it's elegant. Sarah admitted, her hostility fading as she lost herself in the science. Dangerous, probably fatal, but elegant. Probably fatal is better than certainly fatal, Clara pointed out. Sarah laughed, real humor this time. You sound like my father when he was young, when he still believed science could save everyone. It can't, Clara admitted. But maybe it can save you. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then began typing. I'm disabling all the devices, remote wipe of the triggers, the timers, everything. Your FBI friends can collect them at their leisure. Thank you, Diana said, already coordinating the collection teams. Don't thank me yet, Sarah warned. Victor's still out there, and he has copies of everything. The Phoenix formula, the deployment methodology, all of it. He was using me, but I was using him too. I needed his resources, his connections. But now that I've failed, he'll find another way. Where is he? Ethan demanded. Hong Kong last I knew, but he has properties everywhere. Safe houses, bolt holes, entire identities waiting to be activated. She pulled up another file. Here, everything I know about his operations. Consider it a dying woman's gift. You're not dying, Clara said firmly. We're going to try the Lazarus Protocol. A Hail Mary based on incomplete research and desperate hope. Sarah smiled wryly. Very fitting, considering I named myself after Lazarus when I rose from the dead. The next 12 hours were a blur. Sarah was transferred to Phoenix Technologies' medical facility under heavy guard, though she was too weak to be a threat anymore. Marcus was brought in under federal supervision to consult. His daughter's condition had deteriorated faster than anyone expected, and his expertise was crucial. I'm sorry, Marcus said when he saw Sarah for the first time in 3 years. For what? Sarah asked from the hospital bed, IVs running into both arms. For being human, for grieving, for being manipulated by someone better at the game than you. She reached out, taking his hand with what little strength she had. I'm the one who should apologize. I let you think I was dead. I let you suffer. Why, Marcus asked, tears flowing freely. Because I thought if you believed I was gone, you'd move on, find peace. I didn't expect you to seek revenge. She squeezed his hand weakly. I didn't know you loved me that much. Clara watched them from the observation room, Ethan beside her. Family, she said quietly. It makes us do terrible things. And beautiful things. Ethan countered, his arm around her shoulders. Sophie asked if she could meet Sarah when this is over. Said maybe they could be friends since they both have breathing problems. Your daughter is remarkable. She gets it from her father, Clara said, then blushed when Ethan looked at her in surprise. The courage, the compassion despite everything. Before Ethan could respond, alarms started blaring through the facility. Not medical alarms, security breaches. Thunder's voice came through the comms. We've got company. 3 helicopters, military grade, no identification. They're heading straight for us. Victor, Clara said, already moving. He's coming for Sarah. Or the formula. Or both. Not on my watch, Ethan said, his entire demeanor shifting to combat mode. Thunder, activate all defensive measures. Phoenix Wraith gets Sarah and Marcus to the panic room. Reaper, you're with me on the roof. I'm coming too, Clara said. Clara C. My building, my fight. She grabbed the emergency kit Ethan had insisted she keep in her office. Besides, someone needs to protect the servers. If Victor gets our research, he becomes the most dangerous man in the world, Ethan finished. All right, but you stay behind me. They moved through the building like a well-oiled machine, employees evacuating calmly thanks to the drills Ethan had implemented. By the time the helicopters arrived, the building was empty except for essential personnel. The first helicopter hovered over the landing pad, and Clara recognized the man rappelling down. Not Victor. He wouldn't dirty his hands personally, but Colonel James Crawford, dishonorably discharged ex-military, who'd become Victor's personal enforcer. Reed, Crawford called out, his team spreading out behind him. Been a while. Heard you went soft playing security guard. Crawford, Ethan replied, weapon steady. Heard you went mercenary. Killing for money now. Better than pretending to be something I'm not. Victor sends his regards, by the way. Says you can walk away from this. Take your kid and go. This isn't your fight. It became my fight when you threatened my daughter, Crawford smiled. Sophie, right pretty name. Be a shame if something happened to her while Daddy was playing hero. The threat was a mistake. Ethan didn't respond with words. He moved faster than Crawford expected. The first shot was non-lethal, a rubber bullet that knocked Crawford's weapon away. The second was a tranquilizer dart that dropped him before he could reach his backup piece. The mercenaries opened fire, but Ethan and Clara were already behind cover. Reaper appeared on their flank, his sniper rifle picking off targets with precision. Thunder and Phoenix emerged from the stairwell, catching the mercenaries in a crossfire. It was over in minutes, but Clara knew this was just the first wave. Victor didn't give up easily. Her phone rang. Victor's face appeared on the screen, still in his Hong Kong office, but looking less composed than before. Impressive, he said, but ultimately futile. I have more men, more resources, more time. You're defending a fixed position against an enemy with unlimited assets. How long before you make a mistake? Long enough for this to reach every major news outlet in the world, Clara replied, holding up a tablet showing an upload in progress. Your location, your fake identity, your criminal network, everything Sarah gave us. In 30 seconds, you become the most wanted man on the planet. Victor's composure finally cracked. You wouldn't. The chaos would be temporary. Justice, however, would be permanent. Stop the upload. We can negotiate. No more negotiations, no more games. You're done, Victor. The upload completed, and within minutes, Clara could see the effects. News alerts, international warrants, assets being frozen. Victor Lang's empire built on shadows, and secrets crumbled in the light of exposure. You've killed me, Victor said quietly. You know that. Without my protection, my resources, I'm dead within a week. Then you'd better run, Clara replied, ending the call. But Victor had one more card to play. The building shook an explosion somewhere below. Not big enough to bring down the structure, but enough to damage the medical facility. Sarah, Marcus's voice came through the comms. The explosion damaged her life support. She needs the Lazarus protocol now or she dies. Clara and Ethan ran for the medical wing, finding it in chaos. The explosion had been precisely targeted not to kill, but to force their hand. Sarah lay unconscious, her breathing barely visible, machines screaming warnings. Do it, Marcus begged Clara. Please, I can't lose her again. Clara looked at the Lazarus serum, untested and potentially fatal. Then at Sarah, brilliant and broken, dying by degrees. There was no time for trials, no time for safety protocols. Everyone out except medical staff, Clara ordered. Ethan, that includes you. I'm not leaving you. This could go wrong in ways we can't predict. If something happens, Sophie needs at least one parent. She kissed him quickly. Go. Keep everyone safe. Ethan wanted to argue but understood. He squeezed her hand once, then left, taking everyone except Clara, Marcus, and the lead physician. Administering Lazarus protocol, Clara announced, injecting the serum into Sarah's IV. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then Sarah's body convulsed her back, arching off the bed. The monitors went crazy, heart rate spiking, temperature rising, brain activity off the charts. Marcus held his daughter's hand while Clara adjusted the dosage, trying to find the balance between transformation and destruction. Come on, Clara whispered. Fight. You're too stubborn to die now. Sarah's eyes snapped open, but they weren't seeing the room. She was looking at something beyond something only she could perceive. Her mouth opened and she spoke in a voice that didn't sound entirely human. I can see it, she gasped. The pattern, the answer. It's so simple. We were making it too complicated. Sarah, Marcus leaned closer. What do you see? The cure. Not just for me. For everything. Every disease, every defect, every limitation of human biology. It's all connected, all one pattern repeated at different scales. She gripped Clara's arm with surprising strength. You have to document this. Everything I'm saying, it's important. Clara grabbed her tablet recording as Sarah spoke in a stream of consciousness that jumped between molecular biology, quantum physics, and something that sounded almost like poetry. It went on for 10 minutes before Sarah suddenly relaxed her breathing, evening out, the monitors stabilizing. Did it work? Marcus asked. Sarah took a deep breath, a full, clear breath without struggle or strain. Yes, she said in wonder. I can breathe. For the first time in my life, I can actually breathe. The test that followed confirmed it. The Lazarus protocol had not just treated Sarah's condition, it had rewritten her cellular structure, creating something new. Something that might be the key to everything Phoenix Technologies had been working toward. But there was a cost. Sarah's transformation was unique to her genetics, her specific condition. It couldn't be replicated safely in others, at least not yet. And the energy requirement had aged her. She looked 10 years older, though she claimed she'd never felt younger. The transformation had left Sarah Chen looking like a different person, her features sharper, her eyes holding a depth that seemed to see through reality itself. She sat in the observation room 3 days later, breathing without assistance for the first time since childhood, while teams of scientists studied her cellular structure with barely contained excitement. It's not just the lung tissue, Dr. Patricia Huang explained to Clara, pulling up the latest scans. Every cell in her body has been fundamentally altered. The telomeres are actually lengthening, the mitochondria are producing energy at rates we've never seen. She's not just cured, she's evolved. Clara watched Sarah through the glass, noting how the woman's fingers moved across the tablet she'd been given, equations flowing faster than any normal person could write. And it can't be replicated, not safely. The energy requirement alone would kill 99% of test subjects. Sarah survived because her body was already failing, creating a unique environment for the transformation. Patricia hesitated. But Clara, what she's producing, these formulas, these insights, they could change everything. She's solving problems we didn't even know how to approach. Through the intercom, Sarah's voice carried a strange resonance. I can hear you discussing me. The transformation enhanced more than just my lungs. Every sense is sharper, every thought clearer. It's overwhelming and exhilarating simultaneously. Clara entered the observation room, sitting across from the woman who'd nearly terrorized Seattle. How do you feel? Like I'm seeing color for the first time after a lifetime of grayscale, Sarah replied. But also like I'm losing something, my humanity perhaps. The concerns that used to drive me, fear, anger, desperation, they seem so small now. That sounds lonely. Sarah smiled, an expression that looked almost alien on her transformed features. It is, but it's also necessary. Someone needs to see beyond human limitations to solve human problems. She pulled up a complex molecular diagram on her tablet. This is what Phoenix Technologies should be working on. Not just treating symptoms, but rewriting the human genome to eliminate disease entirely. That's playing God, Clara said carefully. No, that's playing human at the level we were meant to. Evolution is too slow for the challenges we face. Climate change, pandemics, the diseases we create through our own pollution, we need to adapt faster than nature allows. Before Clara could respond, Ethan's voice crackled through her earpiece. We have a problem. Victor's been spotted in Seattle. Clara stood abruptly. That's impossible. Every agency in the world is hunting him. Nevertheless, facial recognition just picked him up entering the old Prometheus facility, the one Sarah was using. He's alone and he's carrying something. Sarah's enhanced hearing had caught the conversation. He's going for my backup drives. I kept copies of everything there, not just the Phoenix formula, but the deployment system, the aerosol vectors, everything he'd need to start over somewhere else. Then we stop him, Clara said, already moving. Wait, Sarah called out. He knows I'm alive now. He'll have contingencies. Victor Lang always has contingencies. She was right. As Ethan's team surrounded the Prometheus facility, thermal imaging showed not one heat signature, but dozens. Victor had brought in army mercenaries who'd stayed loyal for the promise of Phoenix technology that could make them superhuman. We're outnumbered 3-1, Thunder reported, and they've got the defensive position. Not for long, Diana Cross's voice cut in. FBI tactical teams are en route. We can have the place surrounded in 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, Victor will be gone with everything, Ethan said. We need to move now. Clara made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. Sarah, can you walk? I can do more than walk. The transformation increased muscle density, reflexes, everything. Then you're coming with us. You know that facility better than anyone, and you might be the only person who can predict what Victor will do. Marcus protested immediately. Absolutely not. She just survived a cellular transformation. She's not going into combat. Dad. Sarah interrupted, her voice carrying an authority it had never held before. I'm not the fragile girl you remember. I'm not even the desperate woman who planned to poison a city. I'm something new, and maybe that's exactly what we need. 30 minutes later, they stood at the entrance to the Prometheus facility, Sarah beside Ethan and Clara wearing tactical gear that looked strange on her transformed frame. The mercenaries had fortified the main entrances, but Sarah knew passages they'd never found. There's an old pneumatic tube system from when this was a working lab, she explained, leading them through a maintenance tunnel that barely seemed wide enough for a person. It connects to the clean room where I kept the servers. They emerged into chaos. Victor's men were systematically stripping the facility, loading everything onto trucks. Victor himself stood at the main terminal downloading terabytes of data onto portable drives. He's taking everything, Sarah whispered. Not just my work, but Father's too. Years of research. Then we stop him, Ethan said, but Sarah grabbed his arm with surprising strength. No, let him think he's winning. I installed something in those drives, not a virus, he'd expect that. It's a tracker quantum entangled with a receiver I built into my own transformed cells. Wherever he takes that data, I'll know. That's impossible, Clara said. So was breathing without mechanical assistance 3 days ago, Sarah replied. The transformation didn't just heal me. It made me into something that shouldn't exist. Might as well use it. They watched Victor work his movements, increasingly frantic, as FBI sirens grew closer. Finally, he grabbed the drives and ran for a hidden exit Sarah hadn't known about his remaining mercenaries covering his retreat. Now we follow, Sarah said, closing her eyes. I can feel the data moving. North, northwest. He's heading for the water. He has a boat. They pursued not directly but parallel Sarah, tracking Victor's movement through senses that shouldn't exist. The chase led them through Seattle's industrial waterfront, past rusted warehouses and abandoned piers, until they reached a private dock where a speedboat waited. Victor was alone now, his mercenaries scattered or arrested, just him and the drives that contained enough information to rebuild Phoenix Technologies anywhere in the world. Victor Lang, Ethan called out, weapon drawn. It's over. Victor turned slowly and Clara gasped. The man looked 20 years older than he had in the video from Hong Kong. His hair was white, his face gaunt, his hands shaking as he clutched the drives. Mr. Reed, Victor said, his voice barely above a whisper. Ms. Winters and Sarah, my God, what have you become? What you always wanted, Sarah replied. Evolution, transformation, the next step in human development. Isn't that what you promised me? Victor laughed bitterly. I promised you revenge. I promised you justice. I never promised you'd become this. This is better than what you promised. This is what Clara and my father were always working toward, even if they didn't know it. The ability to transcend human limitations. At what cost? Victor asked, and for the first time Clara heard genuine fear in his voice. Look at yourself, Sarah. You're not human anymore. Neither are you, Sarah observed. The treatments you've been taking to stay ahead of law enforcement, the experimental drugs to enhance your cognitive function, they're killing you. I can see it in your cellular structure. You have maybe a month left. Victor's composure finally shattered completely. Then at least let me die with a legacy. Let me take this knowledge somewhere it can do good away from corporate interests and government control. Like you did good by destroying my company, Clara asked, by manipulating a grieving father, by terrorizing a 7-year-old girl. I did what was necessary to break the monopoly on human enhancement. Phoenix Technologies would have controlled who lived and who died, who breathed freely and who suffered. I couldn't allow that. So instead you decided to control it yourself, Ethan said. How is that better? Victor had no answer. He stood at the edge of the pier, the drives in one hand, a gun in the other, not pointed at them, but at the drives themselves. Thermite charges built into the casing, he explained. One shot and everything burns. All of Sarah's work, all of Marcus's research, all of Clara's innovations. Gone. You're bluffing, Diana said, arriving with backup. You need that information as much as we do. I need to matter, Victor corrected. I need to leave a mark on this world before I'm gone. Either I leave with this information or no one gets it. Sarah stepped forward, and something in her movement made everyone tense. She moved differently now, too fluid, too precise, like a predator that had evolved beyond the need for threat displays. You're already dying, Victor. Your mark on this world is destruction and pain, but it doesn't have to end that way. Enlighten me, Victor said sarcastically. The Lazarus protocol that transformed me, it could save you. Not the same way it saved me, but enough to give you time. Time to make amends, to use your intellect for something besides revenge. You'd save me after everything. I'd give you the same choice Clara gave me. Die as you are, or risk becoming something else. Sarah held out her hand. But you have to give up the drives. You have to stop running. Victor looked at the drives, then at Sarah's outstretched hand, then at the water below. For a moment, Clara thought he might jump, choosing death over surrender. Then his shoulders sagged, and he set the drives down on the pier. I'm tired, he admitted. Tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of losing everything I try to control. Diana's team moved in, securing the drives and taking Victor into custody. But Clara noticed Sarah swaying her enhanced body, suddenly seeming fragile. Sarah. Marcus rushed forward, catching his daughter as she collapsed. The tracking, she gasped, maintaining quantum entanglement across that distance, it required more energy than I calculated. They rushed her back to Phoenix Technologies' medical facility, where Dr. Hong ran immediate tests. The results were sobering. The transformation is destabilizing, Patricia explained. Her cells are burning through energy at an unsustainable rate. Without intervention, she'll burn out within days. Then we intervene, Clara said firmly. With what? We don't understand enough about what the Lazarus protocol did to her. Any treatment could make things worse. Or better, Sarah said weakly from the bed. I can feel what's happening. My body is trying to evolve further, but it lacks the necessary resources. I need a massive energy input, something to fuel the final transformation. That could kill you, Marcus protested. I'm dying anyway. At least this way we learn something. Clara looked at Ethan, seeing her own determination reflected in his eyes. What kind of energy input? Sarah managed to smile. Remember the failed Phoenix variant that caused electrical sensitivity in test subjects? The one we discontinued because patients were literally absorbing electromagnetic radiation. Phoenix 7.0, Clara recalled. But that was dangerous. Everything about me is dangerous now. But if we combine Phoenix 7.0 with a controlled electrical discharge, something massive but precise. You want us to deliberately electrocute you while you're dosed with an experimental drug? Patricia asked incredulously. I want you to give me the energy my transformation needs to complete itself. Either I become something unprecedented or I die. Either way, we advance human knowledge. The preparation took 12 hours. They had to synthesize Phoenix 7.0 from archived samples, modify the medical facility's electrical systems, and create safeguards for everyone else in the building. Sophie, who'd been staying with Clara during the crisis, drew pictures for Sarah's stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun labeled "Get Well Soon" in careful 7-year-old handwriting. She's brave, Sophie told her father as they watched the preparations through safety glass. Scared, but brave. Like you when you saved Clara. Ethan hugged his daughter closer. Sometimes being brave is the only choice we have. Victor Lang, now in federal custody, but permitted to observe due to his unique insights, watched with an expression Clara couldn't read. You're really going to do this, risk everything on an untested theory? Like you risked everything on revenge, Clara shot back. I suppose I deserve that. He was quiet for a moment, then added, For what it's worth, the Sarah Chen I recruited 3 years ago wouldn't have had the courage for this. Whatever else the transformation did, it gave her something she never had before: hope. The procedure began at midnight. Sarah lay in an isolation chamber, Phoenix 7.0 flowing through her veins while massive capacitors charged around her. Marcus stood at the observation window, his hand pressed against the glass, whispering prayers in languages Clara didn't recognize. Energy at 50%, Thunder reported from the control station. Sarah's eyes were closed, but her voice came through the intercom steady, despite everything. I can feel it building. Every cell is anticipating this. It's like my body knows what's coming. 75%, Thunder continued. Sarah said suddenly. If this works, if I become what I think I might, promise me something. What? Don't let them weaponize me. Don't let me become another tool for control or power. Let me be what Phoenix Technologies was supposed to be, hope for healing. I promise, Clara said. 100%, Thunder announced. Discharge on your command. Clara looked at Sarah one more time, this brilliant, broken, transforming woman who'd gone from enemy to ally to something beyond category. Do it, she ordered. The discharge was blinding, every light in the building flickering as massive amounts of electricity coursed through Sarah's body. The Phoenix 7.0 in her system acted like a conductor, channeling the energy into every cell, every molecule, every atom of her being. For 10 seconds, it felt like hours. Sarah Chen ceased to exist as anything recognizable as human. She became pure energy, a being of light and possibility, her form shifting between states of matter in ways that shouldn't be possible. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Sarah lay still in the chamber, unchanged to the naked eye, but radiating something that made everyone step back instinctively. She opened her eyes, and they weren't eyes anymore. They were windows to something vast and incomprehensible. I understand now, she said, her voice harmonizing with itself in impossible ways. Everything. The pattern behind patterns. The code that writes reality itself. She sat up, moving without moving, somehow being in multiple positions simultaneously before settling into one. The transformation is complete. I'm not human anymore, but I'm not inhuman either. I'm what humanity could become if we're brave enough. What are you? Marcus asked, tears streaming down his face. Sarah smiled, and it was both alien and absolutely her daughter. I'm potential dad. I'm the bridge between what we are and what we could be. She stood, and as she did, the monitoring equipment throughout the room began displaying impossible readings. Her cellular structure was in constant flux, adapting to each moment, each need. When she breathed, the air itself seemed to purify around her. The Phoenix formula, she said, turning to Clara. I can see what it was always meant to be. Not just treatment, but transformation. Not just healing, but evolution. May I... She reached out, not physically, but somehow, and Clara felt knowledge flowing into her mind. Formulas, processes, applications she'd never imagined. It was overwhelming and exhilarating, like seeing the universe's source code. This is what Phoenix Technologies should become, Sarah said. Not a company that owns transformation, but one that guides it. Helps humanity evolve at its own pace in its own way. That's beautiful, Clara said, but the world isn't ready for this. People will fear you, fear what you represent. Then we go slowly. We heal what can be healed with conventional Phoenix treatments. We save lives like Sophie's, and gradually, carefully, we introduce the possibility of more. Sarah looked at Victor through the observation window. Even for those who've lost their way. Victor, watching this unprecedented transformation, seemed to age another decade in minutes. I was wrong, he said quietly. I thought power came from control, from owning the future. But real power is enabling others to find their own futures. Pretty words from a dying man, Diana said coldly. Then let me make them more than words, Victor replied. I have resources hidden around the world. Money, connections, infrastructure. I'll give it all to Phoenix Technologies to support this work. Consider it penance. Clara wanted to refuse, but Sarah spoke first. Redemption isn't given, Mr. Lang. It's earned. Survive the modified Lazarus protocol, and then we'll see what kind of man you become. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Victor, faced with his own mortality and the possibility of transformation, made the only choice he could. I accept, he said. The next days blurred together. Victor underwent a modified version of the Lazarus protocol, less dramatic than Sarah's transformation, but still unprecedented. He survived, though. What emerged was a man fundamentally changed. Not superhuman like Sarah, but renewed his body, repaired at the cellular level, his mind clear of the ambition and rage that had driven him to destruction. Marcus and Sarah worked together to refine the Phoenix treatments. Father and daughter united by science and something deeper. Sarah's transformation had given her insights that accelerated their research by decades, though she was careful not to push too hard too fast. Sophie became the first official success story of the new Phoenix treatment her asthma not just managed, but cured. The joy on her face when she ran for the first time without wheezing brought tears to even Victor's eyes. But it was the quiet moments that mattered most to Clara. Ethan teaching Sophie to ride a bike in the parking lot. Sarah learning to be human again by playing board games with a 7-year-old. Marcus and Victor, former enemies, working side by side in the lab. Even Nathan serving his sentence but contributing to the research through correspondence, finding redemption in small acts of service. 3 months after Sarah's final transformation, Clara stood in her office, their office now as Phoenix Technologies had become truly collaborative, watching the sun rise over Seattle. The city had recovered from the chaos, though rumors persisted about what had really happened in those terrifying days. "You're up early," Ethan said, entering with 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep, too much to think about." "The FDA approval." Among other things, Clara turned to face him. "They're going to approve the basic Phoenix treatment for widespread use. Within a year, every hospital in the country will have access. No more children suffering from severe asthma. No more families choosing between breathing and bankruptcy." "That's amazing, Clara. It's everything you worked for." "It's a beginning," she corrected. "Sarah showed us what's possible. Evolution, transformation, becoming more than our limitations. But are we ready for it?" Ethan set down the coffee and took her hands. "Humanity's never ready for its next step. We weren't ready for fire, for agriculture, for industrialization. But we adapted. We grew. That's what we do. And if we grow too fast, if Sarah's transformation spreads before we understand it, then we deal with it together, like we always have." Before Clara could respond, Sophie burst in, followed by Sarah, who moved with that strange, fluid grace that marked her as something beyond human. Sarah's going to teach me science," Sophie announced excitedly. "She says I could be a scientist like you and her and Grandpa Marcus." "Grandpa?" Clara looked at Ethan in surprise. He shrugged, smiling. "She started calling him that last week. Marcus nearly cried." Sarah knelt beside Sophie, her transformed features softening with genuine affection. "Everyone can be a scientist, Sophie. It just means asking questions and not being afraid of the answers. Even if the answers are scary. Especially then, that's when we learn the most." Sophie considered this with 7-year-old seriousness, then asked, "Are you scared of what you became?" Sarah was quiet for a moment, her enhanced perception probably seeing layers of meaning in the child's simple question. "Sometimes, but then I remember that butterflies are probably scared when they emerge from cocoons. Change is always frightening, but it's also how we become who we're meant to be." "I want to be a butterfly," Sophie declared. "You already are," Sarah replied. "You transformed from someone who couldn't breathe to someone who can run and play. That's its own kind of metamorphosis." Clara watched this interaction, seeing the future taking shape, not in grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but in small moments of connection and understanding. Phoenix Technologies had started as her dream of healing, become a battleground for control, and was now transforming into something neither she nor Victor nor anyone had envisioned a bridge to humanity's next chapter. "There's something else," Ethan said quietly, pulling Clara aside. "Diana called. They found more of Victor's hidden labs. Apparently he was funding dozens of research projects around the world, all focused on human enhancement. Is that a problem?" "Could be. Most of the researchers have agreed to work with Phoenix Technologies, but some have gone dark, taken their research and disappeared." Clara sighed. "So it's not over." "It's never over. There will always be someone who wants to use this technology for power instead of healing, but that's why we keep working, keep watching, keep protecting what we've built." Ethan pulled out a small velvet box, dropping to one knee right there in the office. "Clara Winters, you saved my daughter's life. You gave me purpose beyond survival. You showed me that building something is harder and more rewarding than destroying it." "Will you marry me?" Sophie squealed in delight. Sarah smiled with that otherworldly knowing. Even Marcus, who'd been quietly entering with morning reports, stopped in the doorway, his face bright with joy. "Yes," Clara said, not needing to think. "Yes, of course." As Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, a simple band with a small stone that somehow caught light like Sarah's transformed eyes, Clara realized this was what Phoenix Technologies had always been about. Not just the technology or the treatments, or even the evolution of humanity. It was about connection, about finding family in unexpected places, about choosing to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than hurt, to transform rather than remain static. "We should celebrate," Marcus suggested. "Breakfast, my treat." "Can we have pancakes?" Sophie asked hopefully. "Pancakes it is," Clara agreed, taking Ethan's hand. As they prepared to leave, Sarah remained by the window, watching the city wake up. "It's beginning," she said softly. "The change. I can feel it in the air and the people walking below. Humanity is ready for its next step, even if it doesn't know it yet." "Then we'll help them take it," Clara said. "One breath at a time." Sarah turned, and for a moment she looked entirely human, vulnerable, hopeful, and full of love for this strange family they'd built from chaos and conflict. "One breath at a time," she agreed. They left the office together, a most unusual family. A former Navy SEAL turned security chief, a CEO who'd lost everything and gained so much more, a 7-year-old girl who could finally breathe freely, a brilliant scientist seeking redemption for his mistakes, and a transformed woman who represented humanity's potential future. Behind them in federal custody, Victor Lang sat in his cell, his body renewed by the modified Lazarus protocol, his mind clear for the first time in decades. He was writing, documenting everything he knew about human enhancement research around the world, not for power or control, but as penance, as contribution, as hope that his legacy might be more than destruction. And in hidden laboratories across the globe, researchers who'd taken Victor's funding and vanished were making their own choices. Some would choose to help humanity evolve. Others would try to control that evolution. The struggle between healing and harming, between connection and isolation, between transformation and stagnation would continue. But for now, in a Seattle diner where a little girl was laughing at her father's joke while her soon-to-be stepmother helped her cut her pancakes, where a grandfather figure was teaching her to count in Mandarin, where a transformed woman was learning to be human by being part of a family. There was peace. There was hope. There was breath. The phoenix had risen from its ashes not as a bird of prey, but as a symbol of what humanity could become when it chose compassion over control, evolution over stagnation, and love over fear. The real transformation hadn't been Sarah's metamorphosis, or Victor's redemption, or even Sophie's healing. It had been the realization that they were stronger together than apart, that family wasn't just about blood but about choice, and that sometimes the greatest power came from giving power away. As Sophie blew bubbles in her chocolate milk, giggling when Sarah made them dance in the air with abilities that shouldn't exist, Clara squeezed Ethan's hand and knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and possibilities in equal measure, but for the first time in her life, Clara Winters wasn't afraid of uncertainty. She was excited by it, because uncertainty meant potential. And potential, as Sarah had shown them, was the most powerful force in the universe. The transformation was complete, but the evolution had just begun. The wedding was supposed to be simple. Just family and close friends in the rebuilt garden atop Phoenix Technologies, with Seattle's skyline as witness. But simplicity had never been Clara's strong suit, and with Sarah's transformation allowing her to literally make flowers bloom at will, the rooftop had become an Eden of impossible colors and fragrances that shouldn't exist in the Pacific Northwest's autumn. Sophie stood at the altar in her flower girl dress, breathing deeply and freely, still marveling 6 months later at the ability to fill her lungs without pain. She held the ring's simple bands that Ethan had made himself from metal, salvaged from the original Winters Tower, melted down and reformed into something new and stronger. "Daddy's crying," Sophie whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, causing a ripple of laughter through the small gathering. Ethan wiped his eyes, not bothering to deny it, as Clara walked toward him, Marcus at her side to give her away. She wore her mother's dress altered and modernized, but carrying the history of another woman who'd chosen love over convention, who'd built something from nothing with her husband in a garage that would eventually become Phoenix Technologies. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked quietly as they walked. "Marriage to a former SEAL who attracts trouble like a magnet." "Says the man who faked his own death and nearly destroyed Seattle," Claire replied with a smile. "Besides, I attract plenty of trouble on my own." They'd reached the altar where Ethan waited. Thunder standing as his best man, trying to look comfortable in a suit that clearly wasn't his preferred attire. Diana Cross, who'd surprised everyone by accepting Claire's invitation to be maid of honor, stood opposite her FBI badge tucked away for once. The officiant Judge Harrison, Detective Harrison's father, who'd remained one of the few incorruptible figures in Seattle's justice system, began the ceremony with words about transformation and renewal that took on deeper meaning given their audience. "Do you, Clara Winters, take this man?" The window behind them exploded. Ethan moved before the glass finished falling, pulling Clara down and shielding her with his body as tactical smoke grenades rolled across the rooftop garden. Sophie screamed, but Thunder already had her carrying her to safety behind the reinforced planters Ethan had insisted on installing. Through the smoke came figures in full tactical gear moving with military precision. Not mercenaries. This time, these were professionals government trained, their movements too coordinated for hired guns. "Nobody move." The lead figure commanded weapon trained on Sarah, who stood perfectly still. Her transformed body probably capable of things that would terrify them if they knew. "Dr. Sarah Chen, by order of the Department of Enhanced Individuals, you're under arrest." "The Department of what?" Clara demanded, standing despite Ethan's attempt to keep her down. The tactical team's leader pulled off his helmet, revealing a face Clara recognized from news reports: General Patricia Huckle Hawkins, the president's special advisor on emerging threats. "The world has been watching Miss Winters," Hawkins said, her weapon never wavering from Sarah. "A human being transformed into something beyond classification, able to manipulate matter at the molecular level, possessing knowledge that could destabilize every government on Earth. Did you really think we'd just let her walk free?" "I'm not a weapon," Sarah said, her voice carrying that strange, harmonic quality it had developed since the transformation. "I'm not a threat. You're an unknown variable with the power to rewrite reality itself. That makes you the very definition of a threat." Hawkins gestured, and her team moved to surround Sarah. "Come quietly, and no one gets hurt." "No," Sophie said, breaking free from Thunder's protective hold and running to stand in front of Sarah. "You can't take her. She's family." "Sophie, get back," Ethan ordered, but his daughter stood firm, 7 years old and fierce with protective love. "She saved me," Sophie said to General Hawkins. "She taught me science and showed me how butterflies aren't scared of changing, and she makes the flowers dance when I'm sad. You can't take family away. It's not fair." Something in Hawkins' expression flickered. Perhaps she had children of her own, but her weapon remained steady. "I'm sorry, little one, but this is a matter of national security." "Actually," Victor Lang said, stepping out from behind the destroyed window frame, "it's a matter of international security." Everyone froze. Victor looked different than he had even a week ago. The Lazarus Protocol continuing to refine his cellular structure, making him appear younger, but somehow ancient, as if he'd lived multiple lifetimes and remembered them all. "Mr. Lang, you're supposed to be in federal custody," Diana said, her hand moving to where her service weapon would normally be. "I was, until about an hour ago when General Hawkins here arranged for my release." He smiled, but it wasn't the predatory expression Clara remembered. This was sadder, more knowing. "You see, the government needs someone who understands enhancement technology, someone who's been funding research into human evolution for the past decade. They made me an offer, help them control what's coming, and they'll commute my sentence." "You son of a—" Ethan started forward, but Clara caught his arm. "Wait," she said, studying Victor's face. "There's more to this." Victor nodded slowly. "The Department of Enhanced Individuals wasn't created because of Sarah. She's just the first one they've found. There are others, Ms. Winters. The researchers who took my funding and vanished. They didn't just take the money. They used it. On themselves. on volunteers, on desperate people with nothing to lose. How many? Sarah asked her enhanced perception, probably already calculating the implications. 17 confirmed cases across 6 continents. People who can manipulate electromagnetic fields alter their molecular density, process information at superhuman speeds, and those are just the ones we know about. Victor looked directly at Clara. Your Phoenix formula didn't just open the door to healing, it opened the door to human evolution, and that door can't be closed. General Hawkins finally spoke.
Which is why we need Dr. Chen. She's the most advanced, most stable transformation we've encountered. Studying her could help us understand what's happening, maybe even control it. Study, Sarah said quietly. You mean dissect? I mean understand. This isn't about turning you into a lab rat, Dr. Chen. It's about preventing a war between enhanced humans and everyone else. History shows us what happens when populations diverge. Fear, violence, genocide. We need to get ahead of this. By imprisoning anyone who's different, Marcus stepped forward, putting himself between the soldiers and his daughter. My daughter isn't a specimen or a weapon. She's a person who chose to risk everything to save lives. A person who can rewrite molecular structures with her thoughts, Hawkins countered. What happens when someone with that power decides they don't like the current government, or wants to reshape society, or simply has a bad day? What happens when governments decide enhanced humans don't deserve rights? Sarah responded. When fear drives policy instead of understanding. General, I can see your cellular structure. You have a tumor in your left lung, stage 1 treatable but undiagnosed. Your daughter, I can smell her perfume on your uniform, has type 1 diabetes. Your son, whose photo is in your pocket, suffers from a genetic condition that will manifest in his 20s unless treated. Hawkins went pale. How could you possibly? Because this is what I am now. Not a weapon, not a threat, but someone who sees what needs healing. I could cure your cancer with a touch, rewrite your daughter's pancreatic cells to produce insulin naturally, prevent your son's suffering before it begins. But instead you point weapons at me and talk about control. The rooftop was silent except for the wind and the distant sounds of Seattle waking up to what should have been an ordinary Saturday. Sophie broke the silence. Why don't you just help each other? The simple question from a child hung in the air like an accusation. It's not that simple, Hawkins began. Yes, it is, Sophie interrupted with 7-year-old certainty. Sarah helps people and you protect people, so protect her while she helps. Then everyone wins. Victor laughed soft and genuine. Out of the mouths of babes. He looked at Hawkins. The girl has a point. What if instead of containment we offered cooperation? Elaborate, Hawkins said, though her weapon hadn't lowered. Phoenix Technologies becomes the official research center for enhanced individuals. Dr. Chen leads the program developing protocols for safe transformation, teaching others to control their abilities, ensuring that enhancement serves humanity rather than destroying it. Victor gestured to the assembled group. You have the perfect team. Claire's business acumen and ethical framework, Ethan's military experience and protective instincts, Marcus's scientific brilliance, my resources and, dare I say, reformed perspective, even Agent Cross's law enforcement connections. And Sarah, Clara asked. Sarah becomes what she was always meant to be, a bridge between what humanity was and what it's becoming. Victor met Sarah's transformed eyes, not hidden away in a government facility, but working openly, transparently, helping the world adjust to its new reality. That's asking us to trust the woman who nearly poisoned Seattle, Hawkins pointed out. And the man who burned down a building, Clara added, and the father who faked his death, and the FBI agent who bent the rules, and the soldier who broke out of custody. We're all broken, General, but broken things, when properly mended, are often stronger than they were before. Sarah stepped forward, gently moving Sophie behind her. General Hawkins, I could disable your entire team without harming them. I could rewrite the air you're breathing to make you sleep or dance or see colors that don't exist. But I won't, because that's not who I choose to be. She held out her hand, palm up, and a flower grew from nothing, not an illusion or trick, but actual matter coalescing from air and dust and possibility into a perfect white rose. This is what I choose to do with my power, Sarah said, offering the rose to Hawkins. Create, not destroy. Heal, not harm. But I can't do it from a cell, and I can't do it alone. Hawkins stared at the impossible rose, then at the child standing fearlessly beside a transformed human at the wedding party that had become a negotiation for the future of humanity. If we do this, she said slowly, there would be conditions, oversight, protocols, regular reports to the department. Agreed, Clara said immediately. And all enhanced individuals would need to register, undergo evaluation, receive training in controlling their abilities. As long as their rights are protected, Diana added, her FBI training kicking in. Due process, legal representation, no indefinite detention. And Sophie gets to be in the junior scientist program, Sophie added, causing nervous laughter from everyone except Hawkins, who finally smiled. I think that can be arranged, the general said, finally lowering her weapon. Her team followed suit, the tension on the rooftop easing but not disappearing entirely. So, Judge Harrison said, clearing his throat, should I continue with the ceremony, or has the moment passed? Clara looked at her wedding dress torn from diving for cover, covered in dust and debris. Ethan's suit was similarly destroyed, and most of the guests looked like they'd been through a war zone, which technically they had. Perfect, she said, taking Ethan's hand. This is exactly the kind of wedding we deserve. Complicated, dangerous, and ultimately about choosing hope over fear. The ceremony resumed, though now, with General Hawkins and her tactical team as unexpected guests. Sophie insisted they stay for the reception, which had to be moved inside due to the destroyed windows, but which somehow became more meaningful for its imperfection. Sarah danced with Sophie, the little girl, standing on the transformed woman's feet, as they moved to music only they could hear. Marcus and Victor, former enemies, discussed the ethical implications of human enhancement over scotch that Victor had somehow procured despite being in federal custody hours earlier. Diana and General Hawkins compared notes on oversight protocols, finding common ground in their desire to protect both enhanced and unenhanced populations. And in the center of it all, Clara and Ethan slow danced to their first song as husband and wife, the Seattle skyline glittering behind them through the shattered windows. This isn't how I imagined our wedding, Ethan said quietly. Disappointed? Never. You don't marry Clara Winters expecting simple. He spun her gently, careful of her torn dress. Besides, we just negotiated the future of human evolution at our wedding. That's got to be some kind of record. The negotiation's just beginning, Clara reminded him. There are enhanced individuals out there who won't want to register, governments that won't want to cooperate, people who will see Sarah and others like her as either gods or demons. Then we'll deal with it, together, like we always do. Before Clara could respond, Phoenix, the seal, not the company, appeared at Ethan's shoulder. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation. On his tablet, news footage showed a man in Tokyo literally walking through walls, stealing from banks, and disappearing before police could respond. Another feed showed a woman in London whose touch was turning metal into gold, causing economic chaos. A third showed teenagers in Mumbai who were levitating their bodies defying gravity as crowds gathered to worship or stone them depending on their beliefs. It's happening, Sarah said, appearing beside them, with that unnerving ability to move without seeming to cross the intervening space. The emergence. Enhanced humans revealing themselves either by choice or accident. How many? Clara asked. Dozens today. Hundreds by the end of the week. Thousands within a month. Sarah's transformed eyes saw patterns no one else could perceive. The Phoenix formula was the catalyst, but it was always going to happen. Evolution doesn't ask permission. General Hawkins was already on her phone mobilizing resources, calling in favors, trying to prevent panic from spreading faster than the enhanced individuals were appearing. We need a response, she said to Clara. Something to prevent this from becoming a war. Clara looked around the room at their strange coalition, former enemies, now allies, enhanced and unenhanced, working together. A 7-year-old girl teaching adults about acceptance simply by existing. We tell the truth, Clara said. We go public with everything. Phoenix Technologies, the transformation, the potential for humanity to evolve. We show them Sarah not as a threat, but as a teacher. We offer hope instead of fear.
That's a huge risk, Diana pointed out. People don't handle change well. They handle lies worse, Victor said, surprising everyone by supporting Clara's plan. Trust me, I've built empires on deception. They always fall. But truth, however painful, provides a foundation for building something lasting. Then we do it tonight, Clara decided. While the world is watching, while we have the chance to frame the narrative. On your wedding night, Marcus asked. Clara looked at Ethan, who nodded without hesitation. What better way to start a marriage than by changing the world? The press conference was hastily arranged in Phoenix Technologies' main auditorium, the one that had been rebuilt with reinforced everything after the fire. Within 2 hours, every major news outlet had representatives present, drawn by the promise of an announcement that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its future. Clara stood at the podium, still in her torn wedding dress because someone, probably Sophie, had suggested it would show she had nothing to hide. Ethan stood beside her in his ruined suit, their wedding rings catching the light. Behind them, Sarah waited with Marcus and Victor, while Diana and General Hawkins flanked the stage with their respective teams. Good evening. Claire began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. 6 months ago, Phoenix Technologies was attacked, burned, nearly destroyed by individuals who sought to control what we'd discovered. What they didn't understand was that our discovery couldn't be controlled, only guided. She gestured to Sarah, who stepped forward. The cameras immediately focused on her, on the way she moved, the way light seemed to bend around her slightly, the way her eyes held depths that shouldn't exist. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Clara continued. She is the first stable, fully transformed, enhanced human. She is not a mutant, not an experiment gone wrong, not a threat to humanity. She is what we all have the potential to become: evolved, enhanced, extraordinary. The room erupted in questions, but Clara raised her hand for silence. The Phoenix formula, originally designed to treat respiratory conditions, has unlocked something in human DNA. The potential for transformation, for evolution, for becoming more than our biological limitations. This potential exists in everyone, though not everyone will choose to or be able to transform. Are you saying you can make anyone superhuman? A reporter shouted. I'm saying humanity is already becoming superhuman, Clara replied. Around the world, individuals are discovering abilities that science said were impossible. We can either fear this change or guide it. Phoenix Technologies, in cooperation with the Department of Enhanced Individuals and international partners, will provide support, training, and ethical frameworks for those undergoing transformation. What about those who don't want to transform? Another reporter asked. Sarah spoke for the first time, her harmonized voice causing several people to step back. Transformation isn't mandatory or even advisable for most. Evolution works through diversity, not uniformity. Enhanced and unenhanced humans will coexist, each contributing their unique strengths to our shared future. How can we trust you? Someone called out. You have godlike powers. Sophie, who'd been watching from the wings, suddenly walked onto the stage. Thunder started to stop her, but Ethan shook his head, letting his daughter approach the microphone that Sarah lowered for her. She's not God, Sophie said simply. She's Sarah. She gets sad when it rains too much and laughs at my daddy's bad jokes and can't figure out how to use the coffee machine even though she's super smart. Having powers doesn't make you not human. It just makes you human with powers. The press conference continued for another hour with demonstrations of Sarah's abilities, healing a reporter's chronic back pain with a touch, purifying contaminated water by restructuring its molecules, even creating a small aurora in the auditorium by manipulating electromagnetic fields. But it was Sophie's words that went viral, shared across every platform in every language. Having powers doesn't make you not human. The world's reaction was everything they'd expected and more. Fear and wonder, worship and condemnation, acceptance and rejection. Humanity's full spectrum of responses to change played out on a global stage. Some countries immediately banned enhanced individuals. Others offered them citizenship and resources. Religious groups proclaimed everything from the second coming to the end times. Scientists demanded access to study the phenomenon. Military organizations tried to recruit enhanced individuals for their own purposes. Through it all, Phoenix Technologies stood as a beacon of stability. Within a month, they had established treatment centers in 12 cities, not to create enhanced humans,
but to help those who were transforming naturally to understand and control their abilities. The junior scientist program Sophie had demanded became real teaching. Children enhanced and unenhanced alike, to see differences as opportunities for learning rather than reasons for fear. Marcus and Victor. Their past sins not forgotten, but transformed into purpose, led research into safe transformation protocols, ensuring that those who chose enhancement did so with full knowledge of the risks and benefits. Diana created a new division within the FBI specifically trained to work with enhanced individuals protecting their rights while ensuring public safety. General Hawkins, whose cancer Sarah had cured with a touch that rewrote her cellular structure, became an advocate for integration rather than segregation, using her military connections to prevent the feared war between enhanced and unenhanced humans. But it was the small victories that mattered most. A young boy in Detroit, who could generate electricity, learned to power his family's home during outages instead of fearing his ability. A woman in Paris, whose empathic abilities had driven her to isolation, found peace helping others process trauma. A grandfather in Beijing, who developed the ability to see through solid objects, became the world's best search and rescue operator. And in Seattle, in a penthouse that had become home to the strangest family imaginable, life found a new rhythm. Ethan would wake early, checking security reports from around the world, coordinating with enhanced individuals who needed protection from those who would exploit them. Clara would join him for coffee that Sarah still couldn't figure out how to make properly, despite being able to manipulate matter at the quantum level. Sophie would bounce between her regular school and her advanced science lessons with Sarah and Marcus, her curiosity undimmed by the magnitude of what she was learning. She'd started a video blog, Sophie's Science, where she explained enhancement to other kids in terms they could understand, usually involving butterflies and metaphors about breathing. Sarah continued to evolve her transformation, not a destination, but a journey. Each day brought new abilities, new understanding, new ways to bridge the gap between what humanity was and what it was becoming. She learned to dial down her presence to seem more human when needed, though she never tried to hide what she was. Victor's sentence, commuted to community service that would last the rest of his extended life, worked tirelessly to undo the damage he'd caused. His resources, combined with Phoenix Technologies' innovation, funded enhancement centers worldwide. He and Nathan, who'd been released early for good behavior and his contributions to the research, formed an unlikely friendship based on shared redemption. Marcus found peace in seeing his daughter not just alive but thriving, using her abilities to help others. He published papers on enhancement ethics, becoming the moral compass for a scientific revolution that could easily have lost its way. 1 year after the wedding that had changed everything, they gathered again on the rebuilt rooftop garden. This time there were no interruptions, no tactical teams, no world-ending crises, just family and friends celebrating Sophie's 8th birthday. The guest list had grown. Enhanced individuals Sarah had helped through their transformations. Government officials who'd learned to see enhancement as an opportunity rather than a threat. Scientists from around the world working to understand humanity's new chapter. Even some former enemies who'd chosen reconciliation over continued conflict. Sophie blew out her candles, Sarah making them dance and swirl impossibly in the air before extinguishing, and made a wish she immediately announced to everyone. "I wish that everyone could breathe as easy as I can now." "That's not how wishes work," Marcus laughed. "You're supposed to keep them secret." "Why?" Sophie asked with genuine confusion. "If we all know what we're wishing for, we can all help make it come true." Clara and Ethan exchanged glances, marveling again at their daughters, and she was their daughter now, in every way that mattered, ability to distill complex truths into simple statements. "She's right," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the garden. "We've spent so much time keeping secrets, hiding our wishes and fears and dreams. Maybe it's time we shared them, worked together to make them real." "What do you wish for?" Clara asked her. Sarah was quiet for a moment, her transformed eyes seeing possibilities that stretched beyond normal perception. "I wish to remain human enough to remember why this matters. Power without purpose is just destruction waiting to happen. But purpose without power is just dreams dying slowly." She looked at each of them in turn. "You all keep me grounded, remind me why I chose transformation, not for power, but for the ability to help others transform." "Pretty heavy for a birthday party,"
Ethan said, but his tone was gentle. Every day is heavy when you're reshaping humanity, Victor added, raising his glass of Sophie's favorite pink lemonade. But that doesn't mean we can't celebrate the small victories along the way. Like what? Sophie asked. Like a little girl who couldn't breathe now blowing out birthday candles. Like a building that burned down now standing taller than before. Like enemies becoming family. Like Daddy not crying this time, Sophie interrupted, pointing at Ethan, who was definitely not crying, just had something in his eye. The party continued into the evening, enhanced and unenhanced individuals mingling freely. Children playing games where floating was cheating, but only if you got caught, adults discussing the future with hope rather than fear. As the sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in impossible colors that Sarah might or might not have been enhancing, Clara stood with her strange, wonderful, transformed family. Was this what you imagined when you started Phoenix Technologies? Ethan asked, his arm around her waist. I imagined helping people breathe, Clara replied. I never imagined teaching humanity to fly. Flying is just breathing with style, Sophie announced, demonstrating by taking a running leap that Sarah caught with a gentle manipulation of air pressure, letting the girl float for a moment before setting her down. We should probably discuss the ethics of using enhancement for entertainment, Marcus said, but he was smiling. Tomorrow, Clara said firmly. Tonight, we're just a family celebrating. And they were. Not the family any of them had planned or expected, but the one they'd chosen and fought for and built from the ashes of their old lives. The Phoenix had risen not once, but again and again each time, becoming something new, something stronger, something more beautiful for having been broken. As Sophie ran through the garden, truly breathing free, chasing fireflies that Sarah made dance in impossible patterns, while Ethan and Clara watched with hearts full of love and hope, the future stretched before them, uncertain, challenging, but bright with the promise of transformation. Humanity was evolving not through force or fear, but through choice and compassion, guided by those who'd learned that the greatest power wasn't in controlling change, but in helping others through it. The war between enhanced and unenhanced that everyone had feared never came. Instead, there was integration, understanding, and growth. Not without problems, not without setbacks, but with the determination to keep moving forward, keep evolving, keep breathing. And in a small corner of Seattle, in a building that had risen from ashes, a family that shouldn't exist by any normal measure continued to prove that normal was just another word for not yet transformed. The story that had begun with fire and fear, with a maintenance man pulling a CEO from a burning building, had become something neither of them could have imagined. A love story, yes, but also a transformation story not just of individuals, but of humanity itself. Sophie had been right from the beginning. They all just needed different medicine, and they'd found it in each other.